7th, 2020. This is the regular meeting for the Planning and Zoning Commission. I'm Derek Parks, the Vice Chair, and we have enough for a quorum. We have Mr. Lance Brooks here, and we have Mr. Willie Franklin by Zoom. The first item we need to talk about is consider agenda item A, is approve the minutes of the following regular meeting. And does anybody have any questions or concerns about the minutes? If not, if I can have a motion. Make a motion.
A second.
Motion. Second by Willie. Nope. And ayes. Nays. So ayes have it. The next agenda item is going to be agenda item B, and conduct a public hearing and consider amending the City of Red Oak Code Ordinance, Chapter 14, Article 14, to amend the definition of accessory use and to amend Article 14, Table 6.1 use chart, to allow a permanent cosmetic tattoo body piercing parlor as an accessory use in certain non-residential districts, and to amend Article 12, sign special restrictions for requiring permanent signage for primary use only. Case D as a zebra 20019, requested by staff.
So this was a request back in, I believe, October at City Council. Cole Davis had called in during the public comment section and had asked if the city would be willing to consider making this amendment to basically what amounts to the zoning code. And the idea is what they're saying is like an accessory use. And in this amendment, the idea is to define that accessory use as 10% of the square footage of the primary in general as accessory use, for any accessory use. Then on top of that is now this idea of sort of a tattoo service as an accessory use. So the city currently allows primary use, tattoo parlor by a specific use permit. The idea with this is, in particular for Mr. Davis, his mother owns a hair salon beauty type business here in town. And as you know, COVID has really wreaked havoc on small local businesses. And Mr. Davis is a tattoo artist, so he and his mother are hoping that he could basically just bring his business into some unused space into her hair salon and just operate just in that one space. The building she has is about 1,500 square feet, so 10% would be 150 square feet. The staff and the city attorney discussed some details after council, because council wasn't really allowed to discuss it because it was just in the public comment section. But we were directed to go ahead and move forward. So in talking to the city attorney, it was kind of decided that, well, the idea is that if there was this tattoo service, you shouldn't really be able to tell. So we don't want to allow any sign separate for the accessory use for the tattoo service. We would restrict them to the same hours of operation as the primary. Admittedly, somebody could always play a game with that, but it's sort of just like security fence to keep the honest people on. Then also, the other thing would be in terms of what districts could it take place. It would, staff would recommend that if you're open to this idea, you limit it to the commercial 1 and commercial 2 zoning districts. The city attorney had initially thought maybe highway oriented, but he's an attorney, not a planner. As a planner, I would say that you wouldn't necessarily want to put it highway oriented just because in theory, your highway oriented should really be your more premium, highly visible interstate highway frontage type retail. And again, not that you'd have the signage anyways, but just to keep things kind of simple and clean, it seems like it'd just be better to do the C1 and C2. And for Mr. Davis, his mother's business is in a C1 district, so it would still help him, and it's partly the goal. But then again, we have to treat everybody the same, so, you know, we want to have the same set of rules that they may work for Mr. Davis, should y'all approve them, but anyone else gets to follow the same set of rules too. So the bottom line is, what that means is, so if somebody wanted to do tattoo service as an accessory use, it would need to be part of a primary use that is like a beauty salon, a hair salon, cosmetology, makeup, nails, something like that. You know, it couldn't be, you know, I'm a beer joint, and, you know, and I want to do tattoo as an accessory. You don't get to do that. It's got to have a logic to it. So it's pretty much just constrained to like a hair salon, beauty salon, cosmetology, can never pronounce that word, esthetician, that kind of service. And again, limited to 10%, no outside signage, and it has to be in a C1 or C2 zoning district, restricted hours to the primary. The one thing also we just put in there, just again to keep this simple, is normally when you change the certificate of occupancy, it triggers looking again at your landscaping and parking every time. So we discussed with the city attorney on it. So our suggestion was, again, if y'all are comfortable with this idea to begin with, is don't make that part of the deal. Just like a 10% area accessory use for a tattoo service, this is not going to have a parking impact, and it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense why you need to upgrade a bunch of landscaping, you know, for that. So that was just something we wanted really more clarity in the ordinance. So that way it's clear that the staff doesn't need to go and start counting parking spaces just because somebody have a little tattoo service, part of the beauty parlor or something. So that's it in a nutshell. I don't have anything else to say about it. Ben, if you have anything else you want to say?
Well, yeah, again, you know, it's just a simple, you know, people rent out their barber chairs, you know, for different stylists, it'd be the same thing, except for a stylist would be a tattoo artist. And because we're already in that district, there's no parking impact, so I mean, to me, that's one of the biggest things, when you start getting a new use in an area, and mixing uses, well, that traffic will generate, patronage are they gonna generate, but this is, it's apples for apples, so they're just taking up a space that's already accounted for in the parking.
Okay.
Of the original.
Okay. That makes sense.
So like if that's kind of in staff comment on those issues. Of course, we're happy to answer any questions y'all may have later, and I believe Mr. Davis, I thought I saw him on the Zoom grid, video squares, but I think he's around too. But again, this would be citywide code, you know, zone code amendment.
Okay. And this is a public hearing, so in the public hearing, we have individuals that will speak for the item. Please state your name and your address, so we can have that on record. And we will go to the individuals that are against this item. So if anyone is for this item, go ahead and speak, please. Mr. Davis.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I was just going to speak to, and I can answer any other questions you may have, but I was going to speak to as far as the parking and as far as being considered another, just another chair in the salon. Well, one thing that's majorly different in my business is that I'm tattooing, you know, 2, maybe 3 people a day. So it's even less traffic than that. I've been tattooing for 12 years. And I'm just looking to get out of the hustle and bustle of the city while also, you know, my mom is needing some help. So it's just going to be me and my own personal clientele. So it's not going to be the same as like a tattoo shop is out here in Dallas, where there's several people walking in and parking and foot traffic all day, every day. It's going to be basically my close clients and people maybe that they recommend to me, but it's going to be my own personal little business. It wouldn't I don't think cause any parking issues whatsoever.
And Cole, can you give us your address, please?
Yes, sir. The address is 276 Leslie Wood, Red Oak, Texas 75154.
Thank you, sir.
And the building is actually 1,600 square feet. And the room that I would be operating in is 110. I think it's 10 by 11, so 110 square feet.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Cole.
Thank you, sir.
Is anybody else for this item?
I'm sorry, come again?
No, I was asking, is anybody else for this item? That's maybe on Zoom. Is anybody against this item? And can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Motion by Lance. Motion by Whitman. All right, commissioners, got any questions about, agenda item B? Anything else to talk about?
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question. It's Willie Franklin. I'm sorry, Mr. Vice Chair, pardon me. I do have a question as far as the hours of operation. What are the current hours?
Snipper's current hours, I believe they're closed on Mondays, and I believe that they're open from 8 to 8. If I'd have to double check. They've been there so long, and my mom has had the same women with her for 20, 30 plus years. So I think a lot of them kind of are more at like a come and go as they all have a key and kind of do their appointments more so than strict hours. But if I would have to say, it would probably be like 8 to 8, which I usually work till 8 also.
Okay. So, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
My concern for the commissioners, as well as Ben and Brian, will be if let's say the current hours are from 8 to 8 and Mr. Davis's clients are on appointment only or however he chooses to organize his business. My question would be, with typical tattoo shops, you normally see them flourish after business hours. Typically, it may be weekends, around that 9, 10, 11 o'clock range. What happens if we approve this now and later the applicant comes back and say, hey, I'm noticing my business is picking up. We really need to have people being able to come in at 10 o'clock at night. What would happen in that particular case?
Is that for me? I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, you can answer as well, please.
Well, basically, if I may, I would just like to say that the reason, the number one reason that I'm doing this is to help my mother.
Sure.
But at the same time, I've been tattooing in this Dallas area for 12 years. So I have done the hustle and bustle for the past 12 years. I've worked till midnight, 2 in the morning, building my clientele. I'm a family man now. I'm getting out of that life. I'm at home by 8. I get off at 8 p.m. and I'm at home by 8:10. I have no intentions of that kind of lifestyle that I think is so easily associated with the tattooer's lifestyle. I'm an artist first. I've always made a living off of my artwork. Tattooing is a sub form of that expression. It is not I have no intentions. I grew up in Red Oak, Texas, and I know and I respect the town for what it is, and I wouldn't bring that to the town. And I know that I'm speaking for myself, and y'all have to consider future people that may try to get in the door of what I am trying to do here. So I understand your concerns, but I can only speak for myself, and that is 100% not my intention. I may do a tattoo at 10 p.m. on a random occasion, but that would be you know, that would be, it's going to be a very different environment than what would be associated with the tattoo business. And that's only, obviously, that's only also as well if y'all allowed that to go. But I have no intentions of staying up all night and being at the tattoo shop. I've got a little daughter and a wife. I have no intentions of making it that sort of nightlife place. At the same time, this is my mother's business that she's owned for 30 plus years. So I would do nothing in there to disrespect her business that she's built to tarnish the name of Snippers.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you letting me speak on that because that is very important to me to let you guys know that. Guys,
Brian, man, do we have any verbiage or anything more so not necessarily aimed at Mr. Davis, but those who may try to later on down the road use this as an opportunity as well? So is there anything kind of to keep that in line?
Just the language saying that the hours are restricted to the same as the primary. And to your concern, you know, again, this is just a proposed ordinance, so if y'all want to consider adding, modifying, changing the language, then y'all can certainly do that. So, you know, this is just a draft ordinance between the city attorney and staff. So, yeah, anything that y'all feel, I mean, again, if you think you're open to the idea, first of all, and then, and if you are, and this ordinance you feel has concerns like, say, such as the hours, as far as I know, you could still put like a cap on that, you know, so it could still be something like restricted hours are the same as the primary, but not to exceed, I mean, whatever you think, 10 p.m., whatever. So this can all be modified.
My only concern is that maybe on the rare occasion that a client, because like I said, typically I tattoo from noon to 8 p.m. So there are rare occurrences where I'm very well organized with my time, but there may be a rare occurrence, you know, where a 7 p.m. appointment may run over an allotted, just because it's not kind of like the sort of thing that I can just sort of stop and continue always later.
Right.
So my concern, again, being my first and main concern being the reputation and the name of my mom's business, would be that to address any kind of like, if that's, I don't know how exactly that works, but some sort of fine or something that I may be degrading her business is my ultimate concern. So that would be my only concern with the any kind of time restraint. But again, if there has to be one, I can definitely make sure that that doesn't happen. I typically tattoo from noon or 11 to 8 p.m. So I'm more than happy to do whatever you guys deem necessary.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. And can I get a motion for this item? Agenda item B.
I got one quick question.
Go ahead.
Amendment to the code, is yes exclusive to C1, C2, or is this feature all of them?
The basic idea is limited to C1, C2, but we do modify that idea about the accessory use being 10% of a primary use. So now that applies to the term accessory use as defined. So across any district, residential, industrial. But as far as really where can this take place, it would be limited to C1. And again, it'd have to be part of the hair salon, beauty parlor.
Thank you. Any more questions, Commissioner?
None
Right.
from, I'm sorry. I didn't-
You have another question with?
No, I didn't have any questions. Just more so want to make sure, while Mr. Davis, this is an excellent idea. I'm not necessarily against the idea. I just want to make sure for the road that Mr. Davis is paving for the next case, I just want to make sure we're not overlooking anything or missing something that will later come back for the next case or moving forward. I just want to make sure we have all that aligned.
And I just, to finish off, I'll just say I 100% agree with you. And I know that you guys have a whole other thing in mind and what to consider. But I would just take into consideration that it is going to be very, very complicated for anyone that doesn't have the amount of experience and professionalism that I do to come to Red Oak and open up a tattoo shop and be successful with no signage, not to mention having the hair salon. I understand that you have future concerns for someone that might come in after me, but I would say that it would be very, very difficult for a tattooer from a tattooer's perspective to come in and operate on the strict guidelines that I have here that we've created. That's just something that I will say for you to think about from a tattooer's perspective. I don't know many tattooers that would be able to do that.
That's fair. All right, Mr. Vice Chair, that's all I have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wade.
Thank you all very much. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. And commissioners, can I have a motion on this item?
I motion to approve item, we are still on B, correct?
Yes.
I motion to approve item B as it is written.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, please. Thank you, ma'am. And all for this item?
Aye.
Aye.
All nays? There are none. Agenda item B has been approved.
Congratulations,
Next
Mr.
agenda
Davis.
item-
I'm approved?
Well, we still gotta go to council
I
now.
think I go to council next week.
Oh,
You're-
thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. So next week.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Thank
And
you all.
going to the next, thank you. And going to the next agenda item, which is gonna be agenda item C, conduct another public hearing and consider changing the zoning from commercial C1 to a planned development district PD with usage generally from commercial district 1 C1 and allow for a vertical mixed-use building to include 2 apartments on the upper floor at 109 South Main Street, City of Red Oak, Texas, case number Z as in zebra 20016, first Z Gonzalez.
so you may remember last month, we basically had this case and we were having issues with the parking and the dumpster and stuff, so, the applicant took all the feedback and worked with staff to propose, some changes that hopefully will, I'm sure they would like to see approved. And so one thing is, when they show you the site plan first, but I'll tell you that they did cut off the 3rd story. So we're down to 2 stories. So it's 2 apartments on the 2nd floor and, kind of a flexible space for retail, commercial office on the 1st floor, basically your C1 type. And so what we've got now are, zoom in, it's probably hard. All right, computer's a little laggy here. Hopefully it's a little better. So here are the poly carts, so we've got 4 poly carts, so that way, each apartment unit on the 2nd floor has its own poly cart, and then in theory, you'd probably have 2 spaces on the 1st floor for your commercial retail office, so then they've got 2 poly carts, and this gives us to 5 parking spaces in the back.
It's important to note that CWD, this is in lieu of dumpsters. So when we had the 3rd floor, they said, no way, you gotta have a real deal, commercial style dumpster. But when they went down to the two-story only with the two apartment units and the two, office retail flex spaces, they allowed them to just do the poly cars instead of the big dumpsters. So that was something they worked through with.
And we still have our, parking on both sides of Main up front, that would still be, required there. So we got 5 on site, and then 4 in the right of way out front. And we're taking the 3rd floor off the building, so let me show you the elevation, which there's an issue with. I apologize, I'm not sure why I should apologize, yeah, but I just now thought it that, because we had this discussion about just the overall, we really talked a lot about aesthetics last time, and the balcony, which way it faces, color, and brick, all that stuff.
Right.
And so the applicant has showed us, and showed you all last time, balconies fronting Main Street. Well, apparently that was not his intention, wanted the balconies on the backside. So we said, well, you showed P&Z balconies on the front, but we didn't recall that it was that big of a deal, so if you want to propose balconies on the backside, okay, propose balconies on the backside. But it kind of looks like he took the Main Street elevation that had the balconies on the front, right? And it's relabeled as alley view, meaning the alley elevation, right? Which looks great, but that's the alley. And then let me show you so I'll show you what staff's concern is then with the Main Street view here. Again, I apologize for the lagging computer. Not really a computer, I guess. Bandwidth issue, so much stuff going on. But, so this is the Main Street view, and so we've now lost our fenestrations, our glazing here. We're basically missing 4 kind of glazed areas there, right? So, I didn't catch this, this, what you're seeing here now on the screen is what was in y'all's package that was delivered Friday.
Right.
I didn't catch this, because I just looked for balconies on the back.
Exactly.
But, so staff's recommendation, if you seek to approve, is that this Main Street elevation needs to have the mosaic tile and the glazing and the doors and the windows put back, that we would have expected to have seen. And I'll jump back to this alley view here. And so in the alley view, really in some ways, if you just take the balconies and the offset door, this is really more your Main Street view, with the glazing, with the windows and glass, those windows and glass, that were removed. So I would say we would want to see more like this aesthetic with the mosaic tile, glazing, the fenestrations, and all that. That needs to be what you see on Main, but fine, put the balconies on the back. And so if this is the alley view, that's great. If he needs to say, oh, well, if I've got glazing on both sides, I've got a problem on my internal walls, which could happen, then he needs to talk to us tonight about that, because I think we want to see as a city the pretty image of mosaic tile and glazing and the fenestrations and all that on our Main Street side. And on the back side, we want it to look good because it will be visible. But, the first concern is what does it look like on Main Street? And that needs to be, if it has a best side, that needs to be the best side. Now, if he can make it work with this as the alley view elevation, that's great, that's awesome. But I have a feeling he probably has to make some adjustments there to close those windows. He probably might need a solid wall a couple of places, and that would probably be fine. So all that to say, if you feel good about the dumpster and parking situation and the building and the color and everything else, you might, and if you're okay with the balconies in the back, we might just need to have an motion that y'all will let staff work with him to kind of figure out that detail to make it, like what we're seeing here right now, if we just took the balconies out, that's about 95% of what your front should look like. And then back really kind of should look like what he's showing at the front, but with the balconies. So I mean, this, if it had balconies, put a door to it, and I would probably say, rather than the window being here, the window and door should be here with the balcony there, again, on both sides. And then maybe this is wall, and this is wall. You know, because, you know, they probably need some solid walls, no fenestration, somewhere. But that happens, we want it on the alley side, not on. So, that has been 3 minutes,
No,
Okay. So I will stop talking, take any questions an hour later.
This is a, public hearing, so those who for this item go first, those who are against this item go second. So as of right now, individuals that are for this item, please go ahead and speak. I don't know if Mr. Gonzalez is on the Zoom, but
Yeah, I saw him earlier.
you can go ahead and speak, Mr. Gonzalez.
Okay, like you said, you know, I agree with them. I like to see the front look the best, right? And just kind of, even in the back, if we can fit more windows and make the back look great, you know, I'd like to, you know, the more windows, the better it's gonna look for me and for everybody. But I don't know if that's something that's gonna be possible. I like to see it, but that would be up to my engineer and see if he can somehow put more windows in the alley too, or make that small adjustment to where everything can flow and look good.
Mr. Gonzalez, can you give us your address, please?
109 South Main Street in Red Oak.
Is there anybody else for this item? Anyone against this item?
Yes,
Please. Go ahead, sir. Your name and your address.
Mark Groves, 107 South Main Street, Red Oak. My main concern is, as I stated last month, is, you know, I don't care if they park on the street. I just don't want parking blocking the front of my building, you know, keeping me from conducting my everyday business, which is a lot of it's unloading and loading at different times during the day. And I'm right next door to them, so that's my main concern. I do like the fact that it's, you know, only 2 stories now. And also another concern I had, as I stated last month, was the 0 lot line, which I know he's got the right to build right upon it. But again, that vertical concrete flume is in the middle, exact middle. There's a stake right in the middle of it. I don't know how you're going to do concrete work, you know, around the perimeter of the building on that north side without damaging or just collapsing that flume totally. I know they're going to have to do all new framing and, or, you know, for the concrete work to build it up, but I'm sure that has not been addressed. And I don't want that flume, like I said, half's on my property, half's on his property. So I don't know how they're going to do more concrete work without demoing that out, or, you know, saw cutting it down the middle, which is going to hurt, you know, the strength of it that's on my side. Another concern, now that we've talked about the balconies being the back of the building, is there going to be any kind of screens to block those people on the balconies from looking down into my backyard there? Because it's going to be exactly where the backyard is, right there where that wood fence is.
The backyard of your business?
Well, there's a business on one side, but the other side is a apartment type deal, residential one deal. But there's a backyard there that has a fence in it, and so that's, you know, they're going to be looking right down into the backyard there if there's not some kind of screen to keep them where they couldn't lean over and look, you know. And also, is there any windows going to be on the north side of the building? It looks like it's all brick veneer. Is there any windows on the north side of the building?
The elevations show 100% masonry on both the north and south side.
Right. Okay. So the balcony would be the only one that they'd be able to view down into the backyard, as well as the neighbors across the street. But that's their problem.
Thank you, Mr. Mark. Is there anyone else against this item? If not, can I have a motion to close, close the public hearing?
I make a motion to close the public.
Motion by Lance,
Second.
I'm sorry. I second.
second by Whitman.
Sorry, I had you muted. Sorry.
Make a motion to, public hearing is closed, and, y'all have any commissioners, have any questions or concerns? I know this item that came up before, so, what do y'all think?
I've got a couple of questions.
Go ahead, man.
Thinking about when we met last time, as Brian just mentioned, the parking on the front. I thought I heard you say that there was 4 spots.
Yes.
There was none.
Oh, yes, that's right, there.
Okay. And
And they're all lined up with the building, so Mr. Marr's concern is that people will park in front of his building, but there's 6 dedicated spaces directly in front of the building.
sure. And I know one of the concerns last time was that if the apartments were 2 people apiece, you had 4 cars potentially in the back. There's 5 spaces back there, so that can be fulfilled. 6 in the front. You had 2 workers per building. Basically, you have 2 spots for customers, with 1 for each building. Is there space to extend the proposed parking across the street to go maybe 10 spots? I mean, not 10. Like,
Well, I think
add
one of
2 each way?
I think one of the issues that we can potentially run into would be concepts of rough proportionality. It would meet rational nexus to require more, because they very well need more parking. But for rough proportionality, the thing is, you're basically saying you go and build public parking available to everybody. And that wouldn't really be fair. I mean, he's kind of doing it, but he's doing it willingly. But it's also, the rational nexus part is it lines up with only what's in front of his building on both sides of the street. And I'm not saying, I hear what you're saying. There's always a concern about parking and where do people park and all that stuff. And, I would say at some point, maybe it's not now, but at some point, if you want your downtown area to redevelop, you have to kind of accept some growing pains, and there's going to be parking dumpsters. And from what I've heard from people that own property or want to come in to do business in the area, that is their great frustration, is that there's nothing there that helps them solve the problem. Because with the way that area is developed, right, I mean, essentially, if there's just not enough land in the immediate area, even for them to do a massive parking agreement with each other to meet actual parking requirements.
Yeah.
So something has to give. So what's given so far for decades, apparently, is nothing's really happened with the downtown. And that, of course, frustrates some property owners. Of course, now, some of them have different ideas. What Zeke may think is good, or other owners may be different than District Roads and other owners, right? So completely valid, but we've not had an opportunity to really try to build consensus and a vision on how for everyone to move forward. But I think it's a opportunity, though, since it's new construction and it's kind of a one-off, You know, it's not like this redevelops the whole downtown. And yes, there may be some parking, and people may not be happy. But all I guess the point I'm trying to make is, there are unhappy people now. They've been unhappy for decades, they've just kind of given up. So I guess I just wanted to kind of bring that to the P&Z's attention, that there may be a silent unhappiness out there. And what you're hearing is very valid concerns, for sure, about the flume and parking. I'm not saying they're not valid, just saying that there's, you know, if we want this area to develop, we've got to start somewhere. Again, it's not my call, obviously, it's y'all's call, if you think this is the one or not, or if it is, what do we need to change? But just wanted to, I guess, make sure y'all knew that there's already some unhappiness with stagnation. And then to the point about rational taxes, it would be great, I think, Ben, you know, we looked at that property that I guess is what, city owned by the water?
Yeah.
That we kind of thought like maybe if there's a reason, such as a parking problem, maybe there's a reason to look at that city-owned land to maybe try to provide relief somehow, but it's that chicken and egg. I mean, should the city go and spend money or the EDC or something to go and make that an area for parking before there's business? It would help the business come in, but then they may not want to spend the money until there's business in. But then the businesses won't come in if they can't get parking. So, I mean, this is our catch-22 that's kept everything stagnant. And so, you know, Mr. Gonzalez is willing to kind of break the ice.
The space directly across, like, if he wanted to extend it 2 spots each way, is that an option? To make it 7 on one side and 3 on the front?
It could, now that would mess up, because the other buildings along here have like this kind of sideways angled head-in parking. So what he's providing is a nice parallel space to give you a better streetscape, and that allows the building to be pushed closer to the street, which is, in any kind of downtown setting, you're trying to create, walkability, and walkability is, typically done through like an edge condition. So walking, you typically don't want to, people just don't walk, they feel uncomfortable walking in a big open space, so they always try to get up against an edge. And so when you think about a downtown that you like to go to with big giant buildings, you're always walking along that edge. And so that's why we wanted to push this closer to the street. That's very typical downtowns that were not planned, like New York and Philadelphia, you know, these old downtowns that existed before planning even existed or zoning existed. And it's also typical in, you know, we're kind of reverting back to that as planners and to saying like, well, why do those cities function so well? Because of things like that. And so now we're coming back around and saying, hey, we should be zoning these things in this fashion so that they feel good and they are successful economically as well. Like, for example, we were just talking, Midlothian just approved their downtown recently, or they may be working on it, I can't remember if it's approved or they're working on it. They're requiring no parking. Like, they have no parking requirement. And I know in Mansfield, they have a similar downtown strategies plan that says very similar, like no parking requirement up to a certain amount of units. And so, parking is always this perceived need, and I don't want to get into the whole thing, but we classically overpark almost everything we have. So go to Walmart on Black Friday, not this year obviously, and there'll still be 300 empty spots in the back because it's so overparked. I won't get into all that, but
Yeah, that makes sense.
in any case, yes, to your point, yes, it could be out on the side, but the way it's laid out right now and no one else has developed, everyone else has kind of this either head in and like they're half hanging in the street, it's not set up well. So, you know, this I think will become the benchmark, and hopefully folks will start to realize that they could either redevelop their property, and this would be the starting point, and then we would create that, you know, it's got a nice big sidewalk on the front with the storefront, and then create an edge condition all the way along the frontage of Main Street there. So But I think what this will end up happening is like a service-oriented business, like if somebody, you don't ever go see it, so maybe like a CPA, maybe a real estate, maybe an attorney, someone that doesn't have a lot of foot traffic, where people are like, hey, I need to come to your office. It's more like, I have my office here, this is where I have all my stuff, and, most of your stuff is done with email or internet. So I think it'll be mostly, for the time being anyway, just like a service-oriented tenant.
True. And then we get a lot of calls from people that want to be able to do something like have their office or workspace and live in the same building. So this would be one of the rare opportunities somebody could do that.
Is there anything that says that the bottom portion couldn't also be apartment? I mean, a 4-unit?
Well, given that it's a TD, I mean, you could certainly add that flexibility. So,
But you don't want it to be an apartment on the bottom?
No, I'm just saying, like, does the owner have, or can he say, hey, I'll change my mind, I don't want to make it commercial, I just want to make it
No,
commercial?
based on what he submitted to this point, and what we're zoning right now is C1 on the bottom, apartments on the top. Or is it C1 or is it C1?
C1.
Yeah, so just C1 on the bottom, apartments on top, period. If he wanted to change it and go all apartments, he'd have to come back and stuff.
I know Mark had a question about parking in front of this building. There's something that is just part of the growing pains.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's a public street, so anybody can park there, and like you said, it's always an issue. It's always going to be an issue, but with the amount of parking he's providing, Mark could use his spaces as well, because it's all gonna be in public right of way, they're public open parking space. It's just part of, being in a downtown, is there's limited parking and different businesses using different parking spaces, different areas.
And I guess it's concerned too, like he loaded and unloaded, and I guess it's people parking in front of the building.
Right, but again, with what's happening in our downtown today,
Right.
I would see that this would only be a service-oriented type business, generating very little foot or, pedestrian or even vehicular traffic at this time. Now, obviously, hopefully, we all hope that changes and that it becomes more vibrant down there with more, entertainment style, businesses. But at this point, I'm guessing it's going to be a service-oriented type.
There's sort of a snarky cliche saying, and for planners, when you do this kind of redevelopment and development, and something like, if you don't have a parking problem, you have bigger problems. Meaning, because like you have no vitality, you have no energy, you have no commerce, you have no activity. So if you're not actually having parking problems, you have a bigger problem because you have an economics issue. Again, I know it's a little snarky, but I hear that comment all the time, and I think there's a little truth to it, So it's just one of those things that if we want something to move, maybe it's not this one, but at some point, something's got to give. And this water tank over here, this is the one that, we haven't studied it or researched it. It's just like, well, that's city-owned property. You could probably put down some gravel, some railroad ties, make it like a little public parking lot. If this business actually somehow managed to generate that much parking, then you have a place to direct them to, rather than them, parking in front of somebody's business like Mr. Groves. I can't guarantee that won't ever happen. It might, but also, as I think Ben was alluding to, Mr. Groves' business could have its own successes, and there's nothing that stops his customers from parking in front of what made Zeke's building, where he put in the parking in public right of way. Because he can't put up a no parking sign. That'll be public right of way. Anybody gets to park there.
Okay.
right? I mean, we just hope that it supports just Zeke's business, but we can't put up a no parking, this is Zeke's business. So,
Okay.
because it's public right away. Yeah. So it kind of cuts a little bit both ways there.
Thank you, that makes sense. I mean, I think those are the issues I had last time. You know, the trash being, like to me, they solved their problem, with the ones they have here on the drawing. Anything else, Commissioner?
As for me, well, I don't know if it's just me, but I'm getting horrible feedback. And it may just be me, but just in case there's something that y'all are aware of, I'm getting horrible feedback.
We're getting here also.
Okay. So as for me and my concerns, I do understand Mr. Groove's concern as far as the shared area of the project, how it affects his property as well, look into his backyard. I think the applicant, Mr. Gonzalez, has went above and beyond to try to satisfy at least the majority of the concerns and still develop a reasonable project. He's operating within the confinement of his lot. So while we may agree or disagree on some things, technically by code, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ben O'Brien, the building itself meets code. So he can actually go in, get a permit, and construct this building without any issues with the city, right? Or wrong?
99% right. The issue would be more the use. So he could essentially build that building, but just couldn't use the second floor for apartments.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Right.
Under the C1. So in some ways, it's the apartments that are triggering what would have been an SUP, and then we went to PD for the building line. Okay, so it would be able to build it under C1 at that setback.
Okay.
We've modified setback with the PD.
Okay, but yeah, ultimately for me, I think Mr. Gonzalez have done a fair and reasonable job of at least trying to meet most of the board's concerns. Again, I do understand Mr. Groove's concerns about his property, how this project affects his property. But I think we all do. If you own a home and there are building houses around you, you have concerns about that as well. But I think the design, in my opinion, is fair and reasonable. Minus some cosmetic issues, which I think everyone agreed that Mr. Gonzalez is open to working with city staff to resolve those issues. But other than that, for me personally, I'm okay with it.
I would recommend that Mr. Gonzalez works with the city staff on making sure that the aesthetics of the building meets what we're looking for the historic district. And I think that just requires just a little bit more work. But I do appreciate him taking into the concerns from the last meeting on the parking and the dumpsters.
Thanks. Anyone else?
I just agree with what's said, and I like the fact that he chopped it down from 3 stories to 2. I think that's good too.
Thank you, Leroy. And can I have a motion for this item, commissioners? Somebody want to take a shot at it?
Are we including pending working with city staff to resolve the cosmetic issues?
Right.
Is that the correct verbiage?
I didn't hear the last.
Say that again, Whip.
I heard we mentioned something about contingent on working with city staff to revise or to work to get the cosmetic issues under him.
Yes, that was for the balconies being
Right.
in the back, and all the glazing and the glass getting switched back to where it was.
So I took the liberty of typing up a possible motion that is on the screen, and I'll read it aloud. See if this satisfies y'all's concerns for the motion. It would be approved with the following changes. The Main Street elevation should include the benches, mosaic tile, and fenestrations glazing as originally shown, like, you know, I'll call it last November. And balconies in the rear with staff approved minor changes to make the balconies functional. You know, so, if that sounds like that might capture the idea, then you can make someone can make a motion referencing the staff drafted motion that was just read in here on screen, if that simplifies it.
Okay, thank you.
Or if y'all want me to, we can always work on a new motion.
No, keep it simple.
Okay, and can I have a motion, please?
I, Willie Franklin, motion to approve item C, contingent on the applicant working with staff to review the staff draft items that are posted on the screen and was read by Brian. That is my motion.
Thank you, Willie.
Does that work?
Yes, sir. Second by Lance. All in favor?
Aye.
No? Any noes? Ayes have it. Agenda item C has been approved. The next item on the agenda is item D. This is another conducting a public hearing, consider revising plan development PD 27 with a development plan to provide for an apartment complex on approximately 17.1 acres, generally at the northwest corner of Red Oak Road and Hickory Creek Road, City of Red Oak, Texas, case number Zebra 20021, requested by Mr. Louise Lemon. Member Louise.
I'm trying to get some of these. Oh, wow, that one. Okay, so first just want to give everyone a visual referencing point here. So this is part of PD 27, which is outlined in red. And the request, though, is specific to the orange area here that's highlighted. It's about 17 acres. I just want to give everyone that kind of visual reference point here first. And
We're at the corner of Red Oak Road and Hickory Creek Drive on the east side of 35.
then I think it's important that we also just do a little history here. I mean, obviously the request is about submitting a development plan to complete the zoning of PD 27 for apartments. But I think it's just important for the public record that we all understand exactly the history. So to the degree that I understand and know the history, was that in 2003, PD 27 was created. And this area here, track 3, was what was identified for being, at least in concept, an area for apartments. And then on the next page is, try to make this bigger, was a list of what they called zoning concept plan requirements. Just so you know, so our zoning code had I think a pretty substantial change in 2007, somewhere around that vintage. So at least the way we talk about PDs now is you would either, submit your application for a PD that would include a development plan, or you could do it with a concept plan and come back later and do a development plan. So that's kind of the way PDs are set up under our current ordinance. I don't know what the ordinance was set up like in 2003, but what they did here, I'm not saying it's wrong, it's just different, that they had a zoning concept plan requirement, so there wasn't really a concept plan per se that was submitted for this, like we would normally require. And, but at the time, you know, that might have been the way they did it, which is fine. Again, it's not a criticism. But just to note that, you know, we have a list of concept plan requirements. So what staff has done is kind of treated this basically more like, you know, you still need to do a development plan in the end, and the applicant is pursuing a development plan. So we're kind of skipping the concept plan stage because that would be kind of redundant if you feel like you already know what you want to do with the development plan. But, so it would make sense then that if the concept plan had to meet certain requirements, so would a development plan. And so there's this list here. The other thing to note is this is partially entitled, meaning, you know, the use of apartments on that tract, so the 17 acres, that's been entitled. So that's really not up for debate as far as the use of apartments. Also, the dwelling units per acre, that has already been entitled. That's not really up for debate. It's not to say that if for some reason you wanted to consider going up, you could. You just can't necessarily lower the maximum on it. You can't say like, oh, well, we'll only accept 12. You can't do that now because it was already entitled for 16. There's some other things in here just to keep in mind. They're a little less important, but they're still important, like things like the 6-foot brick stone wrought iron screening wall. Sounds weird to me to say wrought iron is screening, but I didn't write this. With landscaping, sprinkler system, columns of the brick stone every 30 feet on center. So this is one of those things where, depending on where all this goes tonight, on some level, you could say that's kind of partially entitled, that that's all he has to do, although I wouldn't say that's the clearest language ever written, so there may be a little wiggle room there. Also, you still have legislative discretion. It's conceivable that, you know, maybe, you know, you think the fence should zig and zag instead of be straight. I'm not saying you should say that, I'm just saying as an example. You know, so you still have like some room to influence the form and the aesthetic and what's it gonna look like. So what would be, say, unfair would be to say, you know, no, we want 6-foot masonry screening wall completely opaque. Heck, we want 8 feet. You know, that would be unfair. Unless he's asking for something different than here, because it kind of opens up to a bit of a compromise. You know, if he, you know, for some reason were to ask for something different, that could be a reason if you make a rational connection to it, a logical connection. To say, well, maybe we need more screening opaque over here because of whatever. So you'll have wiggle room. But again, just to reiterate, the apartments as a use, that's locked in. The dwelling unit per acre, the maximum, you can't lower it, he's got that. Some of these other standards in here, you really kind of want to just generally stay within them. And I don't necessarily want to get too much more detail on this at the moment, because I think there's a big picture question we might want to move to first before getting too deep in the weeds on the details. And the staff has kind of been discussing this. Let me get to my file. So one of the things is, so he had sent us an example of one of his projects that's already built. So this is the clubhouse. And here's some shots of, again, I believe, as far as I know, that's the same project, and this came from the applicant, showing a nice pool amenity. It's 2-story. This is what, I guess, as staff, we would call garden apartment 2.0. Meaning, they're kind of like large eightplexes, as it were. They've got landscaping, but they don't have a lot of amenities. It's not, this kind of form is not really considered to be as market competitive as other forms of apartments these days. And so also wanted to bring to your attention that, you know, we approved about a little over a year ago, Red Oak Legacy Square apartments, right? And so these are it's kind of a good, I think, analog. You've got about the same acreage around 17. You got nearly, 280 some odd units, more or less, with either one of them. They both had similar challenges on their drainage and topography. They both have a close proximity to I-35, as well as a major road running east-west, so Villa versus Red Oak Road. There's a lot of similarities there.
They're both on a hard corner, two wider street sections of Collector Road.
Yeah. And of course, with Red Oak Legacy Square Apartments, it is near future and existing commercial retail, as well as existing and future single family. And for this proposed location, it's kind of a similar situation, maybe more on a residential impact, but future commercial retail is to the west. But anyways, so for Red Oak Legacy Square, now they did 3-story. The applicant has not proposed 3-story, he proposed 2-story, but he could go to 3-story. That would be allowed under the PD requirements. Here's another shot. And so this hard corner, staff had suggested doing something like a hard corner like this, at what would be the corner of Hickory Creek and Red Oak Road, with the idea that, it's y'all's city, it's what y'all want. Staff's advice is you should want to get the most you can. You would want the most market competitive, right? The one that's going to stand the test of time the best. So from looking at the comp plan, what we've got in there, which we can't entirely use because it came after the zoning was approved, but still, if you look in there for pictures and ideas and livability and all that kind of stuff, I mean, you get more like the Red Oak Legacy Square that we approved last year. And I'm not saying it has to be the exact same thing, but some features that jump out at us is there's the amenities. They have that big drainage channel in the back. It probably won't look quite this grand, honestly, but they amenitize a really big drainage swale that, they originally tried to come in just doing concrete. We worked them over together and got it now to be more of a landscaped, amenitized area. You've got just kind of with the form, what I've read is that the trend with the multifamily is people are wanting the luxury amenities. They want more like a resort lifestyle. And I know some people may say that, well, this is Red Oak. I get calls all the time from people who are like, Frisco and wherever, like the north side of Dallas, like, oh, it's so expensive, the rent, the housing, whatever. And they've done the Google direction time and figured out that being in the Red Oak area is a really good location to be if you are working in downtown Dallas or in that general vicinity. You got this great commute time. And gosh, yeah, I could have all the amenities, all the luxuries, this nicer lifestyle, and I could save 25%, on my rent or my mortgage if it's a house. So the staff position is, just as we approved with Red Oak Legacy Square, that developer seemed to think that, the market was there, could make it work to provide more amenities, make it more architecturally interesting and all that. Again, not saying it has to be exactly this. We would not necessarily want to do cookie cutter, but But staff believes more could be done than what was proposed on the original plan. Sorry, scroll too far. And so just, you know, we kind of skimmed around Googling. There was some stuff in Euless. The reason why I picked Euless of all places, which I know is very different than Red Oak, but it's got a it's got a similar commute time to Dallas, and it's kind of been considered a rediscovered gem in the Metroplex because they had a lot of kind of lower quality existing development and still some new development opportunity. So, but I mean, they're getting, you know, 3-story architectural interest, amenities, you know, like on-site dog park, that kind of stuff. This is another Euless. This is more of a townhome aesthetic that they had. Personally, not exactly my architectural style, but they certainly went for interest, I suppose. Then I grabbed this text out of something more local to us here for Waxahachie, a development called Cypress Creek, that, you know, was going to be 3 stories, have a clubhouse, et cetera, and connects to a hike and bike trail, which unfortunately with this location for this apartment complex, it looks like it's a little too far from where there would be a trail connection. So, I mean, can't really hold that against them. And then this is the Mark on Salon and Waxahachie, 3-story. I mean, I think Red Oak Legacy Square looks better than this, and that's kind of what we want, right? I mean, we want to be better than what everyone else is getting, because, I mean, if you want to have the best looking development with the best value, the best rental rates, and all that stuff that comes with it, then you've got to be better than your competition. So, I mean, whether we like it or not, I mean, we're in competition with whether it's Waxahachie and Midlothian nearby us, but really anyone who has, say, like a 30-minute or less drive time to downtown Dallas, we're kind of in competition with. So if you want to have, you know, the apartments that are going to hold up the best and be well maintained and have those rental rates, you know, we got to expect more. The Market Midlothian, this is a shot, I believe, with a clubhouse, but it's got a lot of architectural detail that's kind of nice. Another shot of the Mark, 3-story also. And then there was, I tried to get to it, another image from, this was, I believe, in Mansfield. Now, this is 4-story, so that would be too tall. But just kind of out of this architectural rendering that had been submitted as part of their plan package, you know, I mean, part of the idea, again, is, I mean, you want to create something that creates a sense of community and a sense of place and encourages activity and energy. And, you know, this has a nice complementary kind of interest. You know, you've got multiple material patterns and colors. You've got awnings. You've got benches. You know, it's a place that looks like it'd be easy to walk around and such. And another side view. And kind of, you know, that would be obviously their clubhouse. Again, this would be taller than what the PD would allow for. But it's just to kind of give you an idea that, you know, I know Mansfield's a little further away, but, you know, what they get in Mansfield is obviously a lot nicer than a lot of stuff that comes in this area, whether it's in Waxahachie, Midlothian, or Red Oak. And, you know, I mean, again, not suggesting the 4-story part, but just that idea of the resort lifestyle with all those amenities and more architectural interest and a better site layout and all that stuff. I would advise that y'all pursue that, because you ought to try to get the most that you can. Especially since it's gonna have to be apartment, and just to recognize, I mean, you're in competition with others, and so, I mean, if it were me, I would want to have the best product possible. I'm sure the developer does too, and maybe what I said is offensive, and I don't mean it to sound that way, but my responsibility is to be a steward of adding value to the Red Oak community. not ensuring necessarily the profitability for a developer. Not to say that I want to harm the profitability for a developer either, because that's important, that they make a profit, of course. But what comes first as a city planner is to be a steward of the value. And let's see. And then let me show you their elevations here, some of their buildings. So one thing is, Ben, what's it called? Clara? What's the thing in Leander? Sarah. This is kind of similar to a development that they did in Leander called Sarah. And the one thing that kind of jumped out at Ben and I that we noticed, though, and we've been asking the applicant actually to do more architectural interest, the gables and awnings and stuff, which Sarah and Leander has, but this doesn't. So, you know, that it seems like you could get, I mean, this looks just a bit too boxy and lacking of architectural interest. It seems like there's something that could be done. So I just kind of wanted to give you a feel for that. And let me just give you a quick glance at the development plan. Easier one to read. No, I'm never going to be able to see that. Make this any better. I'm not sure if you can see it, but one thing I want to point is on that hard corner. So there's kind of just a open area that's got some benches and trees that would go there. But otherwise, you got the two buildings here separated. Staff had suggested doing more of the hard corner approach. You know, having a complete building there that's all contiguous, just like at Red Oak Legacy Square. I mean, even if you use his aesthetic that he's proposing, but just one connected kind of L-shaped building. And one suggestion we had also made was to avoid that even messing up their density calculation. The space here, if it was a connected building, we had suggested, you know, that can be an area to amenitize as self-storage. Because there are people in apartments who need, like sometimes, you know, they're between houses or they're in the middle of relocating and all these people coming out of California, moving to Texas. Having, you know, the self-storage would not count against your density requirement. It'd be something you can make money off of. And, you know, we could get maybe a nicer aesthetic on that corner. Because, you know, it could look like the building. But on the inside could be some self-storage, I mean, just for the residents, of course. Right. But again, and that could be an amenity, but that was not, apparently had no interest. So I'm not going to go into too much more detail on their plan at this time, because what I want to kind of jump gears to is sort of a consideration of, you know, make this a little larger, because I'm trying to think of what the possible motions might be that we might come to. And so what they've submitted is what we've called Garden Apartment 2.0. You know, exactly as submitted. You know, we don't really know all the amenities that they're proposing. Of course, that could be an easy thing to talk about and make a list of, put into a motion, of course. But, you know, there doesn't seem to be the architectural interest. It doesn't seem to be as nice as the Sarah that they developed in Leander.
It's similar to, we've got the apartments right there behind the Knox truck stop on Brothers Boulevard. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's very similar to what they're proposing. And then there's the Red Oak Apartments right down the street on Red Oak Road that is also very similar garden style. It's kind of what we're talking about, Garden 2.0. It's a little bit better than that, but not much in terms of form and layout.
And so, I mean, if that was the direction y'all wanted to go, then we should certainly talk about details and everything. if you're thinking, well, maybe I do want something more better, we might call that garden apartment 3.0, then we ought to talk about what more better means and get into the details of what they submitted. And we probably need to have a motion that postpones an actual vote and that they go back and work with staff, taking your feedback and direction. Just kind of like we did with the 109 South Main building. You know, we gave them direction, they went back, worked with staff, and they brought it back the next week. And then another option could be to consider, you know, to think about is if you wanted something more like Red Oak Legacy Square apartment, you know, then what would that be, you know? And we could have a conversation about that. And it could still be a similar thing of postpone the vote, go work with staff, give me something more like Red Oak Legacy Square apartment. But, you know, we need to be able to give the applicant some direction to work with staff as to what does that mean? You know, what about it did you want to achieve? One of the other things is the applicant talks about his development being kind of this townhouse aesthetic, which I personally, I sort of see it and I sort of don't. And again, even though the comp plan comes after the zoning and the comp plan for that area, they do talk about allowing townhomes. Now again, he's entitled to apartments and his density, but as just one reason why I guess we thought it was interesting or might be a good thing is since he was talking about, at least in concept and in early meetings, about a townhouse aesthetic, it was like, oh, that's good because the comp plan talks about actual townhouses. So if you look more like townhouses, that could be a good thing. But it sounds like he does apartments, but there are developments where they have done things that are apartments that look like single-family houses or they look like townhouses. So, one thing is what does it look like on the outside is just kind of an outside skin. And it's a little different as to what actually happens on the inside. I don't know, we haven't had any serious conversations of how could they develop that site to be more like a townhouse style development that could still achieve the density he wants and all that. So I don't know how practical that idea is, but it's something to throw out there. And then, of course, if you don't think the plans work and you don't like them, it's also not your requirement to play designer. You can always, recommend denial and deny the plans. Just remember that, he does have the entitlement for apartments in that density. So, at some point, at some point, some kind of plan has to be worth approving, and it's got to be fair. And the other thing to note is, Mr. Leibowitz is the property owner, but Taylor is the guy kind of initiating this because he's the one that's got, I guess, the option to buy the property to develop it. So, but it's actually Mr. Leibowitz who has more of this entitlement on the property for the apartments and that dwelling unit. But again, nobody has an actual entitlement to the final development plan. And just because you satisfy all those concept plan requirements does not mean that this is somehow now a ministerial act where we have to approve any plan that comes in front of this just because it satisfies those concept plan requirements. You still have discretion. Like I said, there could be the thing about the fence. He could propose a straight one and you want it to zig and zag. Right. So, you still have discretion. I think the big thing is the apartments and the density is really not up for discussion, not that part. But that final form, what does that look like? What are those amenities? And again, just the thing about what do you think is going to be market competitive? I guess if I'm making a recommendation to staff, my recommendation is focus on what you think obviously is best for Red Oak, but what is market competitive? So what I would say, I guess, is we could pause kind of here for a moment and you could start to take input from the public, because I'm just staff talking, right, pre-public hearing. So if you wanted to open the public hearing part and let people have feedback, because, because I've now talked about some of these kind of big picture ideas of, you could approve it as submitted with maybe minor changes. You could approve it, you could postpone the vote, doing more of a garden apartment 3.0, giving direction, work with staff, make it a lot more better than what was submitted. Or you could postpone the vote and say, I want something more like Red Oak Legacy Square, or you could postpone the vote and say, I want something more like a townhouse development. And I would just leave it there at the moment. And so that's kind of out there for the general public to have heard that are listening. So we could open the public hearing, get their feedback for and against, hear what they have to say, what their concerns are. And then you could leave it open if you wanted, or close it, and then we can talk then more and discuss, do we have a feeling for which direction the P&Z wants to go? And if we can kind of get to maybe a direction, it doesn't have to be a motion to approve anything, but just like a motion to do we have, can we agree on, whichever one of these ideas to pursue and talk about and discuss? Again, not to approve it, just to have a motion to discuss that direction. And then we can pick that direction. And then I think it'll be worth maybe going back into the details of the plans to talk about, whatever, fencing, screening, ponds, engine, trees. But, so that would be my advice to y'all.
So you said I can open up for public hearing, but then I guess we still have the option we could postpone our vote for one of these options here, right?
Yeah, I'm just thinking that hopefully the general public has had a chance to kind of really hear the big picture, the big concerns, of this development.
Right.
And have heard kind of in advance of some options that, as staff, we just tried to anticipate where y'all might go based on what we know about the case. And that way, the way the general public can hear, because they may have something to say, right? Like they may say, Red Oak Legacy Square Apartments, yeah, that's awesome, or no, I don't like it. And y'all need to know that. Right?
Exactly.
But I don't know that we need to go in the weeds on super deep detail on its plans at this moment.
Right.
So I think we could kind of stay at sort of this middle level picture of Garden Apartment 2.0, 3.0, Red Oak Legacy Square, townhouse. I think those are kind of your four kind of big picture themes. And so I think the public could you can hear their feedback and their concerns. And then we can close that public hearing, and then y'all can pick a direction on what theme do we want to talk about. And we'll go from there and get into detail later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brian. Since this is a public hearing, I want to open up the public hearing. Those that are for this item, please go first, state your name and your address. Those that are against this item will have your opinions after that. So individuals that's through Zoom, if you want to go ahead and state your name and your address, give us a little idea of why do you approve this project here that's presented to us today.
Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Taylor Stone, and I am the developer. I'm at 3324 Greenbrier Drive, Dallas, Texas, 75225. I want to personally thank Brian for a wonderful introduction on my project and for doing everything in his power to shoot it down before we even have a chance to tell you about it. First and foremost, I have been developing apartments for over 25 years. I have focused primarily on two-story apartments. We build a great project. We build a great product. You can drive all over the Metroplex and see examples of it from far north Dallas to Forney. You can drive throughout Austin and see it. The problem is we were advised to design a three-story product. We were advised to design a product, push it up against the street, and tower over the neighborhood to the east. We did not think that that was advisable given the homes to the east and how that would not be well received by them. For that reason, we stuck with our two-story project. We came to a property that is already zoned. We met every condition within the concept zoning requirements. We met every condition within the P and Z outside of that that dealt with design and landscaping. Brian never asked me to talk about amenities, and I can tell you right now, every amenity that he mentioned to you guys in the meeting, we have, and we have more. We will have more than Legacy Red Oak. Legacy Red Oak, you know, it's a three-story product, and some people like that urban product. A lot of people don't like that urban product. In the days of COVID, would you rather walk up to your home and walk into your door on the ground floor and walk into your own home? Or do you want to go up a set of shared stairs and down a common corridor when you're going to be running into everybody? There are many different ways and many different reasons why one product could be better over the other. But for Brian to insinuate that we are building an inferior product, that we're building a product that is less marketable, is totally unrealistic, totally not backed by any kind of facts. It is only backed by his opinion. Our properties are market rate properties. Our properties get the same rents as any other new product in the market. If not, they get a premium because we only have 2 stories. You don't have anybody living on a middle floor. You don't have somebody schlepping their groceries up the 3rd floor. You just have the 2 floors. Regarding the, I just like to go through some of the items that Brian pointed out. He's calling it Garden Apartments 2.0. Actually, I would argue that the 3-story is Garden Apartments 2.0, and they are becoming less desirable today. Moving back to a lower density product, you can read article after article, is becoming more preferred. People want to be spread out. That is what we are doing here. That is what the property is allowing. He's saying that we don't have a lot of landscaping. He wouldn't know. We submitted our landscape plans. We submitted what was required by the city, but he doesn't know what's going in our various pocket parks. The corner where he wanted a hard corner building, that is a pocket park. What is there right now is a representation set up by the landscape architect. There's a lot of personal preference that was being displayed by Brian. And I that is fine if it comes from P&Z, because but from city staff, we have met zoning, we have met the concept plan requirements, and we have met the P&Z requirements outside of the PD and the concept plan requirements. We have a legal property that we can build here. Just because Brian doesn't care for it, I'm sorry. For one thing, the photos that he showed me, if I knew that this was going to be a beauty contest, we would have done beautiful aerial overshots that would have made it look fantastic, and I can get you those. The roofs do have plenty of undulation in them. The problem is they're black roofs, so you have to look very closely to see the various lines. The understanding that that Legacy Red Oak is possibly how y'all want to go, I think that's fine. But what you did is you had a project approved without any existing single family next to it. Putting a 3-story product next to existing single family where we can look into their backyards, they're not going to like that, especially the value of the homes that are over there. The luxury amenities, if we want to go into that, we have over 1,000 square foot fitness center. We have game rooms. We have resort style pools. We have yoga yards. We have community gardens. We have outdoor grilling and dining and gaming areas. We have community gathering areas. We have a dog park. We have a dog spa. You know, so I'm glad we don't have any amenities. Inside the unit, we have all granite. We have 9-foot ceilings. We have 42-inch kitchen cabinets. We have hard flooring throughout the unit. I'm glad we don't have any good amenities, guys. The architecture in terms of cookie cutter, he has one hard corner building on his project. If you look at the rest of Red Oak Legacy, it's all 24-story stacked flat buildings. That's as plain Jane as it gets in the apartment world. So for him to call us an inferior product and a lesser quality product, I don't agree. Talking about creating a sense of community and space, our pocket parks throughout the project do just that. Our community gathering areas do that. We have that. What we also have is direct access garages into our homes, so you can pull into your home and close your garage and walk straight into your unit if you want to. Again, ladies and gentlemen, I am a little frustrated, and I apologize. I feel like I was completely ambushed based on previous conversations I've had with city staff. Yes, he did say that he preferred one versus the other, but then he also said, if you don't stick out like a sore thumb, blend in. And we blend in. We don't want to stick out like a sore thumb. We want to be part of the community. We want to engage in the community. Again, in closing on my part, Red Oak is a fabulous town. We build a fabulous product. This product would be very well received there. It's been received well in many other communities that are as neat as you guys. We've met the conditions. With that, I will close and open the question.
Thank you, Mr. Stowe.
Thank you.
Anyone else for this item? Agenda item D. Is anyone against this item? D.
Yes, so this is Maurice Webb from 201 Pinewood Avenue, here in Red Oak.
Say your name and address again.
I'm sorry?
Could you say your name and address again, please?
Yes, it's Maurice Webb at 201 Pinewood Avenue. And so I will say that I am dead set against the apartments being there in the first place, just because, when we moved here, we moved from an apartment complex. We are aware of, the things that typically happen in apartment complexes, which is why we decided to buy.
Mr. Webb, I don't mean to cut you off. We can kind of barely hear you. We can't hear you as clear. I don't know if you, are you talking from the speaker?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me better now?
Yes, sir. A lot better.
Okay.
You can start over, please. I'm sorry to disrupt you, but start over.
Yeah, sure thing. That's not a problem. But so I do want to point out a few things. One, and like I was saying earlier, I am against an apartment complex being that close in the first place, just because we already have 3 of them in the area, with all within a half mile of my residence. And they do. I mean, I understand. He doesn't want it to stick out like a sore thumb and everything like that. I understand that. However, I do have a concern with having it basically right in our backyard. I mean, it's literally right across the street from us. It's not ideal from our point of view, and I can't stress that highly enough. However, that said, I understand that there is legal authority there, and I do recognize that. I think going the minimalistic route would be better. So, if we have to have this here, if, it's something that we absolutely cannot change for one reason or another, I think a minimalistic approach would be better and more ideal. So that said, I would be more so in favor of the two-story townhome setup. Just because, I think it would probably look better for the neighborhood as a whole. That it kind of fit the aesthetic of our community here, which still growing. And that's the biggest part of it that I wanted to put into it. And then my wife also had some concerns, a question, but I'll let her go and say her piece real fast.
I'm Jessica Webb, same residence, of course. My major concern is that we just recently, as of the 3rd, paid our property taxes. And when you bring mixed zoning in, it kind of tanks things. We have just been here for 2 years when we got married. And, we were excited. We loved the new big homes. Everything was flourishing. It looked so great. And then we get something in the mail that says, hey, we're going to put an apartment there. Well, there's 3 apartments within a mile from our home. And being a parent with kids, I would love if that area was maybe used for maybe a park and not more living spaces. The townhome scene does look better to me. It kind of flows when you have $350,000 homes on one side of the street versus apartments on the other side. It kind of clashes if it doesn't match. But like we said, we do respect the fact that this was approved previously. And if we have to go that route, I think matching townhomes to pricey homes is the best route to go.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Webb. Is anybody else against this item?
Yes.
Go ahead, sister. State your name and address.
My name is Denise, and I live at 7 Mulberry Court in Red Oak, Texas. I stay exactly across the street from where you're trying to build on Hickory Creek. My concern, one, back when before they built the homes that everyone's talking about, the $300,000 home in the senior citizen area, my understanding when they presented this to us before they opened the road up, Mr. Hargrove and them, that was going to be townhomes. I was not aware until previous that was going to be apartments. And when we spoke, we asked for transparency. And I don't feel like transparency is what we received. I do hear everything in this meeting was 2015, 2016. If I would have known it was going to be so detailed, I would have pulled my paperwork and my agendas, but I will for this next Monday. We already have a thoroughfare there. The speed and the people going through the community with no regard for people that is living in the homes across the street. My concern is across the street, us having apartments is posing a bigger problem. Like Mr. Webb and Mr. Webb was saying, I know what type of, I'm not trying to downgrade anyone, but I know what type of atmosphere having an apartment building brings. And not only what it brings, the kind of people it attracts. And I'm really concerned about that, being right across the street from our homes. It bothers me that, okay, I understand, because it was said several times, it's not up for discussion. I don't understand not up for discussion. Mixing homes, people that's trying to move outside of the apartment rim, mixing homes across the street, apartments across the street from homes. I understand the $300,000 homes, but also we have our homes a little bit further up where I live, you know, which we feel like is of value also, and we don't want to bring that value down with apartments. While I understand 3-story versus 2-story, it's still going to be apartments across the street. We have a low-income apartment, and I was trying to see what apartments you guys was comparing these apartments to when you said up Red Oak Road, because from my understanding, the apartments that's up Red Oak Road by the Red Oak City is low-income apartments. So that's another question. I looked at the numbers. I mean, what type of people are going to be going into apartments? So I guess my thing is, I would rather townhomes again versus having apartments across the street from where we live. Thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your opinion.
Just a real quick point of clarification. So we were talking about Red Oak Legacy Square apartments. We were not talking about apartments that were up Red Oak Road.
I did mention those as a nearby garden style apartment.
Yeah, well, I guess as far as a comparison to what would be, something, I guess what, again, I would describe as being market competitive. Red Oak Legacy Square, which was lots of amenities, higher end. It was not a subsidized kind of product or anything like that that you may be thinking about. And then also, again, the apartments have been entitled, the density has been entitled. This was done in 2003. When was the single family houses built?
And I guess that's my thing. I've attended several council meetings and P&Z. I've never heard of this until we had that meeting when they were talking about building those $300,000 homes in that senior citizen gated home community. I heard townhomes. I believe it's the first time that I've heard that we're going to be building apartments across the street. And I'm just being honest. I hear you. I heard you say 2003. I heard you say 2007. And I'm hearing this, but I don't know where I missed it at, because I was at those board meetings when we were trying to get it zoned, and I don't remember this. So excuse me for my ignorance, and I'm going to call it that, if you should call it, because I try to follow a lot, because again, I'm a single parent. I built my home from the ground up. I rented in a house in Red Oak first to make sure it's where I wanted to plant my roots. And now that it's about to be, not only it became a thoroughfare because it was a dead end, fine, open it up, that's fine. But there's no rules. And now we're going to open it up to apartments across the street. It's going to be a nightmare. So I understand what you're saying, Brian, but I never heard of this. And I hear you, 2003, 2007, but it behooves me. So, but thank you for listening.
Yes, ma'am. No, I appreciate that. I just, with Zoom, I don't always know if people are hearing us clearly. So I only meant to restate it for everyone's benefit, just in case something was, feedbacking or didn't come across clear on Zoom. That was all I meant by that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just real quick, I'd like to follow up just one time on something that was brought up just now. With having an apartment complex, obviously the city will be growing, not just with this one, but multiple that will come in the future. So then now the question then becomes for me is, with us having an investment that we placed in this area for the next 30 plus years, is the future idea to bring bus lines from the inner city out to this area as well? Because there are growing numbers of apartment buildings that are out here, and then the city starts to expand more and more. I see that as a slippery slope, and I think we need to be able, to really take all this in consideration before we just throw, apartment buildings, regardless of how nice they may be, which I have no doubt about the gentleman's plans and what the quality of it would be. But obviously things change over time, and we've seen that time and again. And those of us who have purchased, make the decision to purchase, have either have the experience or have obviously lived in or around apartment buildings or apartment communities. So we obviously didn't want that lifestyle, and now it's being forced on us, essentially right in our backyards. This again, if we have to have this, I'm dead set against it, but if we have to have this, I think that we need to make it as minimalistic as possible, make it blend in, and then we have to figure out a way to make this whole situation make sense. Because I've never heard about apartment complexes coming up in anywhere near this area. This is my first time as well hearing about it. So now I feel like there's information that's not being conveyed properly, whether it been the builder for our community over here or the city. Somewhere along the line, information was not relayed properly. And this is a major concern because now I want to know what else are we not being told for future development. It doesn't make sense for us to stay here if it's being presented one way, then there's something else that's happening behind the scenes, if that makes sense.
And I agree, transparency needs to be something that the community gets, only because we're building we're investing. And with investing in the community, that means building our homes, raising our kids, but we want it to be safe, but at the same time, we don't want our value and our homes to decrease because now we have apartments across the street. So absolutely, Mr. Webb, I agree.
Thank you. Is anyone else against this item?
Yes, sir. How you doing?
How you doing, sir? Just state your name and your address, please.
Yes, my name is Alfredo Acevedo, and I live on 101 Spruce in Red Oak, Texas, 75154. And me and my wife have concerns because, like the gentleman said, we did not know of anything, whether it's our builder or what have you. We had no idea that apartments were being brought here. We work in Plano and could have stayed in Plano, but my roots are in the South. So I wanted to come back and give to the community with nice infrastructures, but having apartments makes it feel like, it's just a different, it's like, I'm from Oak Cliff. It's like going back to Oak Cliff, in the bad part of Oak Cliff. So it's something that doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm completely opposed to it, whether it's townhomes or apartments. And just like the gentleman said, something was hidden from us because we heard there was going to be a park across and this and that. And we're hearing completely, totally opposite now. And it just worries me because we have a child that being apartments being built, which I just don't agree with.
And this is Elizabeth Acevedo, same address as well. I oppose to having apartments across the street. We do have a little one, and just thinking of how busy the streets will be, I don't think it'll be the bestest investment for our neighborhood, this upcoming neighborhood. If I really oppose to the townhomes as well.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else?
Yes, Michael Bryce at 103 Spruce Street. I'm also opposed of it as well, townhomes and apartments. Let's be honest. If you move to Red Oak, you're moving to get away from apartments in the first place. Because that's not the caliber of housing that we wanted to live in. Again, we were brought in here, me and my wife, with the notion that there will be parks, a pool, and walking trails for us to have in our community. However, you know, we continue to get blindsided with the city of Red Oak as far as the things that are coming into this neighborhood. So again, I'm definitely opposed of the apartments, and I'm definitely opposed of the townhomes.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else?
Yes, this is Dr. Sandra Fernandez. I'm at 601 Aspen Court, Red Oak 75154. I'm sitting here listening, and I hear that the land has already been entitled for apartments for up to 280 some odd units, but that the developer now is willing to do the 2-story units. But does that mean it would still be the 270, 280 units if it's only a 2-story? Or if now they're considering the townhouse development, how many units would that be? That's one question. And then my other question, since I'm still hearing that it's already been designated for that, is the pictures that were brought by Mr. Bryan, I guess, and then Mr. Stone is saying that that's not a good representation of his product. Is if we move towards the townhomes over the 2- and 3-story units, would we be able to look at the designs beforehand? Because the designs that Mr. Bryan brought forth from Mr. Stone have that boxy kind of low-income housing unit style. And so for me, I hear that it's already been designated as such. So now I would like to at least be involved in what exactly is going to be there, and then that it's not going to decrease our property values here because of the design.
Okay, I'll quickly answer your question about the density. So they are proposing, the developer is proposing a 2-story product. That is their base product, or their product that they like to do and wanted to do here. The number of units they're providing is 306. And so when we were saying it's already entitled, what we were saying was back in 2003, it was zoned for apartment uses with a set dwelling unit per acre maximum. I believe that maximum was 16 units per acre. And that's how they got to the 306 units based on the acreage that they had. As far as being able to have your input, you're giving it now on the style. So if the commission tonight decides they would also like to see a different style, then we would hold another meeting whereby those new renderings or elevations would be resubmitted and opened again.
So there's no chance that the apartments or townhomes would ever be subsidized housing? Because I'm sure that the developer knows about the Rosemont developments in Dallas, and all those Rosemont apartment buildings are gorgeous on the outside. They actually look like upscale living, but we all know that they're all subsidized housing.
Exactly.
This is.
I don't know that we could stop them. I don't think that's their product and their intent. But from a standpoint of government subsidy, I don't know that we could stop them from doing anything like that. But I know that's not their intent.
Thank you. Is anyone else? If not, can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing, Willie Franklin.
Motion by Willie, second by Lance. All in favor?
Aye.
Noes? Ayes have it. Public hearing is closed. All right, commissioners, we have heard from both sides. What are y'all thoughts on this?
Mr. Vice Chair, this is Willie Franklin speaking. Even before I heard the community's concerns, I wasn't in favor of it. But in fairness to the applicant, I do understand if this was planned in 2003, I believe I heard was mentioned, the use was already approved, of course, before any of us was actually brought into this process. Do we by chance have an actual photo or example of the applicant's work in a comparable city?
Yeah, we'll pull it up on Google Maps real quick.
Well, you're talking about the, their Leander project?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sarah.
Okay, yeah, I think they,
And then this is just in fairness to the applicant, since he did claim that what was shown to us wasn't his actual product. So I just want to be fair and take a look.
okay.
And while that's been, oh, there it is. And I'm assuming the,
I believe this is the same product. I think it's got a little bit different materials, and then you can definitely see the differences in the elevation where they provided gabling instead of roof hipping along the, I guess that's the back of the unit.
can the community see this as well?
Yeah, they should.
Yes.
Okay.
Not impressed.
And I agree, I am not impressed. That looks horrible. That is definitely gonna decrease our value.
Respectfully,
I
ma'am,
agree.
the hearing is closed for the public.
Yes, ma'am, hearing is public hearing.
I apologize.
No, that's fine.
Okay, that's all I need to see.
Anyone else?
For me, commissioners, I'm not the biggest fan of it. I'm more in favor, if anything, would probably be a townhouse look, because I do understand that it's already zoned, which means legally he has a right to build his product. But if we're speaking on Red Oak and being comparable to other cities, I think a nice townhome product overrides apartments, because you don't see many townhomes south of 30. So if we want to stand out and we have to have some type of unit similar to this, my recommendation would be a nice townhome community.
Okay.
Willie, this is Brian. I have a question for you, just for, I guess, that would provide staff as well as tailor some information. So on townhouse, is it like, so I mean, if it's technically apartment, but it looks like townhouse, like, you know, if the development site is more consistent with where you would find townhouses, if just kind of the general architecture, fine, being 2 stories, is more consistent with townhouses, kind of like what we showed with Euless. Would that be still okay, like if it looks like it, even if it's still apartments? Like, meaning you could even have like the separate apartment unit on, say, the 2nd floor from the 1st floor, but when you're standing outside, as far as you know, it's just a 2-story townhouse. I mean, you couldn't tell from the outside, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, you make sense. It's just speaking on behalf of the community and someone who just purchased a house as well a couple of years ago. Your builder would tell you one thing, a community meeting would tell you another. Your emotions are all over the place from buying a home. And then a couple of years later, after you set in and now you see this big complex coming, you automatically, now you're upset because your investment could possibly decrease. So just more so something that satisfies, one, the builder who has a legal right to build, but as well as the community who's invested here for the next 30 to 35 years. So I think something that meets both sides in the middle. And again, my opinion will be a townhome look. And as you said, if that means something that includes a first and second floor, I guess there's not much we can do to combat that if that's legally what he can do per code.
May I ask for clarification on something? I know it's closed, but I have a question and I wanted clarification. When we
yes,
say
ma'am.
townhome, I'm sorry?
Oh, yes, ma'am, go ahead.
I know we're saying townhome look, but are they gonna be actual townhomes? Because I'm not just a resident here, I'm also a realtor. So my question becomes, townhomes can be purchased, which means they build equity, versus apartments are strictly for renting. So it's one thing to be a townhome and another thing to have a townhome appearance. So would they be actual townhomes or just have a townhome appearance?
No, ma'am, what we're talking about is a townhome appearance.
Okay.
But Mr. Vice, that's essentially all I have. Because I know for the most part per code, it's not much we can do to limit what has been written per code. But my goal is to find a happy medium in fairness.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Willie. I'm kind of on the same thing. I've been living in Red Oak since 2005. I heard one individual on there saying he came from Oak Cliff area. I'm from the Oak Cliff area, so I kind of know, when you're from those areas, you start thinking about apartments, you start kind of thinking about the worst, because that's what you're kind of used to being around those worst type of apartments. I think these developers have a different idea of how they want their brand to be. Nobody wants that, bad apartment outlook, because the thing is, if they get that in one city, the other city doesn't want them there. So these individuals that's put this money in these projects, as far as I've read across, the individuals going forward now, they're looking to put in some great product. But we do have to listen to the homeowners there in the community. Since these apartments are right across the street from those homes, I would be concerned myself. So I'm thinking maybe do a postponement. And
So I have a question. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I don't mean to cut in. We, in the beginning of this, regarding this situation here, there was mention of this area basically being a gated community. I have not seen or heard anything about that since we moved here. Is there anything that, and then this may be a totally separate issue, but is there any development or advancement on that promise?
Are you saying the apartments will be gated, or are you talking about?
No, sir. For the actual houses. This was from everything I've heard, especially going through the home buying process, that this was supposed to be a gated community as well. So, is there any developments with that at all?
No, sir. Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, is there something that we can do to make sure that to push that to happen?
This isn't really the forum to talk about it. If you'd like to reach out to city staff tomorrow morning, we'd be happy to talk about it with you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Listen to the fours and nays. What do y'all think, as commissioners? As far as me, I'm thinking of more. If you look at the screen, I think we probably should postpone it. Option number 4. That's my opinion. Postpone the vote and provide feedback recommendations for development plans that show a form more like a townhome development.
I agree, Mr. Vice. 4 is the only thing that comes even remotely close, in my opinion.
I would agree.
Leroy, what do you think?
I was just looking at these Red Oak Town Village apartments. How would I don't know if it'd be fair to hold them up to the same standard as this Red Oak Legacy development we're talking about, because there's a lot of high-end retail designed to go in there. Of course, the big bowling alley and movie theater and everything. I looked at that as kind of one. I know they were separate phases or whatever, but I kind of looked at it as one huge development. Whereas this is just it's an apartment complex. I know we need to consider the residents that are nearby, but there's not really any business development. I know there's some things that are zoned commercial, and maybe, you know, eventually over time there will be businesses that are developed. But I don't think it's really fair to hold them to the same standard as the legacy development that we're talking about. But looking at the Red Oak Town Village apartments, I don't know how that would compare. Is that considered garden apartment 2.0, or is that similar to this, or is that something that's even better?
Yeah, that's kind of similar to what they're doing. It's a 3-story versus a 2. And just to kind of go back again in the history, I believe this was all zoned at one time originally. And so is that right on the history? Like the whole thing was zoned up to a villa?
Yeah, well, there was before PD 27, there was like PD 25 and some other stuff.
It was all, I guess, under maybe an original ownership, and that was all zoned at once, which kind of gives it more of the, when we think about creating a holistic development that kind of looks similar in nature, that's what we think of, and it just so happened that the single family developed, they're basically done. So they've kind of set the aesthetic, I would think. But there is, across the street, across Red Oak Road, there is, you know, a large vacant tract that fronts I-35. So that's, it doesn't go with this development, you're right. But that would be, that's zoned HO right now, highway oriented. So it would be similar to Red Oak Legacy Square in a from a proximity standpoint to commercial. And it does have the small commercial corner across the street. But again, it was all zoned at once, and I can only assume, and I don't know, that the thought was at the time it would be a holistic development, and only now we think that it's kind of, oh, well, it's a standalone, because nothing's been done there for 20 years, when it was from the time it was originally zoned. So now it feels like a standalone, but that's just because it hadn't been developed yet, I think. I don't know if that helps any or clarifies what your thought process was.
Well, just looking at the plans, I mean, the side views look, the roof looks better than the front views. The front view does look flat. And I know the developer said, or the builder said that it's not what it looks like on paper. It looks better, but I agree with what y'all said about the gables. The gables would make it look 10 times better. Like I said, I can see it from the side, but I can't see it from the front. And with respect to the houses in the development nearby, I think some stone would be definitely something that needed to be mixed in there, because the brick and the hardy plank, you know, it's I think that's what you would call basic, maybe, you know, garden 2.0 or something like that. Whereas if you incorporated some stone, which would probably be what's on the columns that are going to be on the fence line, you know, similar to the houses that are nearby, I think it would make the product look 10 times better. It still may not make everyone happy, but it would be, a lot higher standard product than what I'm seeing in front of me right now.
Right, and I think that's why we showed this townhome picture, that, you know, it looks similar kind of in form and, you know, materials and things like that, as the homes in Hickory Creek. Now they're 3-story instead of a 2, but, you know, you just make it a 2-story instead of 3, but, to me, this looks like, goes with what you're saying. It's got stone on it. It looks like the homes over there in Hickory Creek.
I think you're right. Yeah, we don't want it, obviously we don't want that high, but like you said, we don't want it to stand out. We want it to fit in. And by looking at the houses in that neighborhood, you can kind of get a good idea of what kind of materials you might want to use in that building and what kind of design you might want to have on it. Because like I said, what was submitted here, I suppose if there were no houses nearby, it'd be okay, but it really doesn't fit what's nearby.
Thank you,
Maybe just dress it up or rethink it a little bit. Like I said, I appreciate the builder not going to 3 stories, and it sounds like the homeowner's in agreement with that. They don't want to go 3 stories either, so that's good that he considered them as well. But it does need some fine tuning, it looks like.
Okay, thank you, Leroy.
I think they also need to take into consideration when they work on the redesign, to look at the garage access. So where you drive into your garage and you have direct access to your apartment. I think that also provides a higher end apartment living that's more of a townhome style. And absolutely 2 stories would be the maximum, listening to the homeowner's concerns.
That's a good point.
Okay, thank you, Kim.
Kim, can I just clarify what you're saying? You're saying you want them to have more of those, or just because they've provided some?
I would say I would prefer it to be the majority of the parking available would be garage access. Not some, but the majority, if not all.
Okay, and just for everyone's clarification, on that original entitlement document, it had some requirements for covered garage spaces, and they actually exceeded that. They are providing more, I believe, is that correct?
Yeah, I think we required, and they're doing like 32%.
Yeah, so they are providing that in compliance with that original document.
I think it needs to be more than 30%, but okay.
So in the way this is written, so it's a garage is for a minimum of 30% of the units. So it wasn't put in as a maximum, right?
Right.
So it's minimum. So yeah, I mean, it's fair to ask for more. It's one of those little details that you can ask for more.
Right. Yeah. Obviously, we wanted to, in my opinion, we want it to be more than the minimum 30% requirement.
Okay. And commissioners, can I have a motion on this?
You'll put the screen back up so I can read it, because I think we are we going to rephrase anything, Brian?
We just want to make sure that you guys are giving us enough direction to work with the developer, so your motion can simply be, go back and work with staff, but we need to make sure that we have enough input from you guys that we can kind of create a list to work with the developer. So,
because if we're talking about, if we're talking about going in a townhouse direction, I think it also may be fair to bring Taylor back into this conversation, because as I understand it, his product, he goes through kind of that's why I was asking about the look issue, because he tries to do a townhouse look. It's just that they're not true townhouses like the lady was saying, where you could, own an individual townhouse. He does apartments, but he tries to make them look like townhouses. So we may want to invite him back into this conversation to discuss with him this direction that y'all mentioned, with the townhouses, and you know, because, I mean, it wouldn't do as much good to take this direction and then tomorrow talk to Taylor and he says, well, that doesn't work. I mean, I can't do that at all. I mean, which may or may not be our problem, but it'd be better to find out now, because if it's just some little thing, we can give them direction on, you know, or a clarification. So I would like to invite Taylor kind of back into the conversation, you know, to hear, you know, what y'all said about basically the townhouse direction, and to see if he has anything to say, if that is okay.
My question to you, Brian, would be, as far as the use, that's already in stone, correct? So is apartments is already in stone. There's not much anyone can do about that, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that the community is aware of that.
Mr. Tiley, are you still there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, I am. I wanted to wait till I was asked to speak.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. And thank you all for your feedback. I appreciate it very much. We can go back and look at the elevations and the facades and definitely add more gables, and we can mix in some stone with the brick. Work a little bit harder to maybe show some differentiation. One of the difficult things about the zoning, and it is what it is, and I'm fine with that, is it requires 80% masonry, which it's hard to put in some architectural elements and differentiate with that. And, but we can go in and try and do that. But when you have so much masonry required, it does give it a little bit more of a monolithic type look. But they are not barracks. They are not subsidized housing. They're market rate. Our average rent will be over $1,350 a unit. I mean, these are not bottom of the barrel units. In terms of those items that you're looking for, we can do that. We can look at adding a few more garages. It does start to become extremely cost prohibitive. Those are not money makers for us in terms of building them, because they're very inefficient in the building, but they help with the project, and that's why we like to do them, and that's why we do them. So, Ms. Campbell, I will take that under advisement and look for other areas where we can add them. I don't know if I can get to your 50%, but I'll try and get close. How's that sound? Yeah, we'll be glad to sit back down with Brian and everybody else at the city that they want us to meet with and try and work through it.
Thank you, Mr. Tiley.
Thank you.
Brian, the options.
So
You want the options on the no, I was thinking about the options.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I didn't know if we had it clear.
Well, I guess the one thing I want to make sure I understand, Ben, or you chime in too, is, so, you know, again, here, I'll just show you an example, because, like, I mean, this, let me try to zoom in here so it looks a little easier for everybody to see. You gotta wait for it. So, I mean, this is only just obviously one of the buildings. And like Taylor said, you can't really see the roof detail there, you know, because it's all, you know, same color shingle, fine. But, you know, it does hide some of that interest. He's right. But, so I think, as I understand, like, Taylor kind of considers this to be sort of that townhouse look aesthetic, right? Because you've got, you know, the door down here, and it kind of, I mean, I only have my opinion, but I'd say it doesn't look quite like a townhouse, but it looks more than just like an apartment, that's for sure. And let's see. So again, I'm not suggesting exactly this, but just this, or 3-story for that matter. But just this looks more obvious that it's a townhouse because it actually is. But there are some developments that have been done where they try to make essentially apartments look like, function like a single-family house, a townhouse, So that's where I think staff thought maybe we were understanding where Taylor was coming from. That, he's entitled to apartments, but our saying is he does a townhouse look. And of course, these were initial conversations, and when he sent us links to some of his stuff.
Right.
And it looks, I just have my opinion, and my opinion doesn't quite look exactly like a townhouse, but that may not necessarily be the benchmark either. It doesn't necessarily mean it has to. That's y'all's call.
Right.
But, and again, there's going to be some practical realities. But, something that looks and functions more like a town. It's like Kim was making the point about trying to have more garages. Because, a lot of the townhouses, a lot of times will have their own garage or a carport type thing right out back where you park right there. And Taylor's certainly right that, that is a product that there are people that want that, that do want that two-story. But then again, it's still apartments, so that's why I kind of need to get a better feel on what is more important that it looks like. I guess how far does it need to go in looking like an actual townhouse, given that these are apartments? I guess that's something I feel like I need to better understand.
Taylor, once he listens, since he's been listening and developing and stuff like that, I guess he looked at, the homeowners across the street. I guess they're just trying to tie the whole neighborhood in. So I assume he's gonna just bring that to you all based off the conversation you hear us talking about.
Yeah, I think we're just looking for more like, that one looked like 1, 2, 3, 4 houses just smashed together, right? That's kind of like a typical what you call row home, town home, 0 lot line, home. And so is it this aesthetic we're trying to achieve, or like go back to his elevation, or is this okay if he just threw some gables on there like the Sarah development that we did the Google map on? So take a look at this building, and then can you jump back to that Google map? I believe that's the exact same building, just with a gable roof on the front instead of a hip.
That is correct.
Because we think that if it had more of this kind of interest in detail, which some of it may just be lost in looking at an elevation, but if it had more of this interest in detail, it might look more like the townhouse aesthetic.
Let me point out something, if I may, because it does get lost in the detail, because this is the exact same front, but with hip roofs versus gables. But what happens here is you'll see that each one of those, let's call them towers, that's hardy plank that can be painted. And when I have an 80% masonry requirement, I can't do that. And it all blends in. And that's what I'm fighting on what we're trying to do in Red Oak. I'm trying to maintain and adhere to the requirements, and it doesn't allow me the architectural articulation that you could normally do if you had a little bit more freedom with your materials.
I think that could be easily solved if we go and if you're looking at the other townhomes we keep referring to, they have multiple uses of brick and stone up and down the elevation, and also varying colors of brick. To make.
Right, and here's a key with this though. Look at the size of them and look at the price of them. Those are $350,000 homes or $330,000 homes.
Yes, sir. I
And
understand
they can afford to do that.
Okay. Can you go back to the Sarah?
Yeah.
I did also want to point out a pretty notice. Well, it's hard to notice, but can you zoom in on kind of those windows on the second screen? If you look at those windows, you can see that there's a good sizable gap between the top of the window and the top. I don't know what the ceiling heights are on this, but go back to the elevation.
Yeah, they're 9-foot ceilings.
Yeah, so this one is a 9-foot first floor top plate, and the second plate is only an 8-foot. And you can see that, just quickly, like zoom in on a window, you can see that the windows are tucked into the cornice of the top plate there with no, like brick detailing or anything. So that, again, kind of lends itself to not looking as nice as even the Sarah that we were just looking at. Just that simple 1 foot. But things like that, that Brian and I go through in detail when we're looking at the elevation. So we just want to make sure that those are the types of things we're looking at. So to me, I'd look at the Sarah, and I would say, you could continue. I mean, you can also use stucco in those areas that are hardy-like, because we do count stucco as masonry. So it's a lighter material that can kind of go up in those higher areas, still be painted. And I still think that if you individualize, because that, to me, it looks like it could look like 4 separate townhome buildings. But again, if you want the aesthetic, it's like you have to use a different material or a different colored brick on each one to kind of just separate it to make it look like, hey, it's a row home or a 4 homes together. So I think that's kind of, I guess, when I think of townhome, that's what I think of. So I just want to make sure, we just want to make sure as staff that either you guys are thinking the same thing or you're not, just so that we can work with the applicant as efficiently as possible.
Ben, I think you're hitting it, and like you said, I think there's some minor tweaks that can be done to make it look a lot nicer. And then again, you mentioned stucco. I know Hickory Creek uses stucco on some of the backs of their houses, so he could just drive around Hickory Creek and see the materials that are used in those houses and get a pretty good idea of how he can mix things up and make it a development that would fit in and look nice.
Well, that is kind of what, I mean, when staff had a meeting with Taylor, I mean, that was part of the discussion, and part of what was, I mean, basically what was brought back was based on the comment you just said. So, I mean, we need, I think, to know more specifically than what that means, because if we're not seeing it now, I mean, that was basically the discussion we had was, I mean, and Taylor did, to a large extent, look at Hickory Creek, the single family across the street, to look at what brick and stone color and roof shingle materials, to use. But I think you've got a point, though, that if, depending on how much more architectural interest you want beyond, say, what we see here in the Sarah and Leander, you might have to consider accepting maybe less masonry so he can work with some other materials to give you some other colors or interest. But also to Ben, I think Ben was making a point earlier also about doing the 9-foot on the second floor as well. That may help with architectural interest as well. So, I mean, like you've heard me say before, I don't live here, I'm from Houston. We don't even do zoning. So, you don't want my opinion, like my actual true personal opinion is probably way too modern and contemporary. So, that's why we really kind of need to hear from y'all what y'all really want to see or what you don't want to see. I mean, sometimes it's also can be easy to say, well, I don't want to see X. That can help us work with the applicant to make sure that, again, as Ben said, we want to work efficiently with the applicant. We do not want to make the applicant spend, thousands of dollars on drawings that stand no chance. So we want to give him as much good feedback as we can. So if he goes and does all this again, it's an efficient process, and he's bringing back something y'all really wanted to see, and hopefully would, could lead him to the path of his goal of getting approved, but still subject to what y'all want to see, so.
So you're saying, once you talk to the applicant, the only thing that the applicant provided was just this elevation, this one right here, he just provided one?
No, there's more elevation.
No, I'm talking as far as what he provided to you all to make a decision on. You know, what I'm looking at here is.
Yeah, like there were no options, you mean, like,
Yeah.
option one, option three, yeah. This is what, we went back and forth a couple times, we asked him to do a few different things, like, I believe I'd asked for the gables on the,
Yeah.
similar to what they did up there, I asked him to move up the top plate, to 9 feet and get the windows out of the top plate cornice. A lot of the things I talked about, we had already given them those comments, they were not received well or not adhered to or considered.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right word, so that's why we're bringing them up again, kind of make sure that you guys, if you guys have those same comments.
Okay.
We also, one of the things we also talked about, my comments, utilize four-sided design, because especially at this corner, because we've got two buildings facing the corner of Red Oak Road and Hickory where you're going to drive down and see them. So we don't want them to look forgotten about. We want them to look just like the side of a building, which is only going to be a flat base. So,
okay.
Again, there wasn't much consideration given to that comment.
I guess my next question, this is just a question, I guess for us, like you say, y'all need some kind of guidance. Do y'all need that from us right now tonight? I guess for us commissioners, can we come back? I mean.
Well, I mean.
And say, hey, you know, we've looked at it, or Lance might have something that might bring something back to you on next week. Is that something that's possible for us to do as commissioners to kind of get an idea? You know, I know they're on Zoom and we're here.
Yeah.
Maybe have some photos in front of us and kind of look at, to kind of give y'all better guidance. That way I can tell them, hey, this is what they're looking at. Maybe. I'm not for sure if that's even possible.
Well, I mean, I guess it's possible. I guess it's a timeline thing. I mean, if we do it as a regular meeting, then we can't really reconvene to then discuss that for a month. And then for Taylor to then finalize any plans, most likely would mean yet another month. So it would, you know, I mean, again, I mean, that's really more his problem than our problem, but trying to be fair and considerate at the same time. I mean, that could delay in 2 months. Another option might be is if y'all are open to it, we could do a special meeting. So you can take the time, think about it, look at stuff, and we could reconvene, say, in 2 weeks.
And that's a good idea.
Figure out the notice.
Yeah, okay.
It's a great idea. I'm sorry.
Just as I say, I need to be able to figure out the notice and the timing to see how we can work that out. So that way, y'all have had time, like you say, because y'all need to be able to make an informed decision and give direction, so you'll have a right to not be rushed. But in the interest of trying to keep a schedule and everything, we might have to consider like a special meeting to work it over again with the idea of trying to, you know, compress the timeline a bit. Although, of course, I don't know how we do it in 2 weeks if there's Christmas.
Yeah, so it would have to be next week. We would be able to, notice with a 3-day window?
No, I have to still do 15 or, well, with the way our ordinance is written, technically it's got to be the 15 days before the hearing. I'm not sure if we can actually.
Is that if they're taking action?
Just to discuss business. They have to just to be discussing this case.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. If we need to do a special meeting, y'all can figure out the days. I know that applicant, you know,
Yeah.
their business.
Yeah, that just puts us 15 days from now, puts us on the 22nd. So that's, I don't know what everybody's schedule.
Yeah.
You know, I want as much input from y'all as possible, obviously.
Well, because I would say, you know, I mean, yeah, I don't want y'all to feel rushed. It's important to get right, because whatever gets built is gonna last way longer than the amount of time we take in making a decision. So, I mean, I don't want anyone who is listening on Zoom, because, you know, I wish we were all in person, just to make sure that the P and Z understands I'm not trying to rush y'all. But I'm just trying to think of a way to also, you know, just be efficient, move fast as we possibly can, but still feel informed. Because I guess, I don't know, I guess at this point, I can't think this fast on the spot. If you want to take a quick recess, and I can try to look into this and see if there's any other solutions. I don't know if there's a way around the renotice. But if you want to take like a 10-minute break, I can try to look into it.
Okay.
And so like call like a 10, 15-minute recess.
I would like to call a 15-minute recess.
I do have a question, but do I need to ask it after the recess is over?
Yeah, you may want to hold that, Mr. Webb,
Okay, thank you.
because I believe Brian has stepped away. Mr. Vice, can we, are we allowed to still speak during the recess?
Well, the idea was to call a recess.
Okay.
Yes, he's gonna mute everybody as he
break.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I got you, Will, I got you. I understand what you're saying, but yeah, he's gonna mute everybody that's here for 15 minutes.
Okay, perfect.
All right, thank you.
But I'm trying to remember. Is it muted?
You're unmuted.
Okay, the recess has ended. Willie, did you have a question before we, for the recess?
I asked
I'm sorry.
a question and he said I couldn't speak, so I'm.
Ma'am, go ahead, and your name again, ma'am? Your name?
Denise Williams,
Okay, and your address?
759 Mulberry Court, Red Oak, Texas, 75154.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you for allowing me to speak again. What I was saying was, I was just looking at the stats in 2003, 2007. I have a plaque from when I built in 2009. Across the street was designated as a park and a pool. And I privately emailed Mr. Leroy Kleiss because he was previously my neighbor and asked him, do he remember that? And he remembers it also. So I'm trying to understand, was it rezoned? Can I, if it was zoned as apartments originally, can I request that actual plaque or zoning? Because I would like to look at that and compare it to what I have, because I mean, I'm getting a little frustrated here because I hear you guys and I respect everyone on here, and I really appreciate everyone with P&Z that has spoken up for us as a community and homeowners. But I would like to look at it and compare it to what I have. And Brian, I also sent you something because I would like you to look at what was presented to us and see where did the communication break down at.
Yes, ma'am, we can send you those documents if you'd like. You said you sent Brian an email?
I did, sir.
Okay, he will respond to that with the zoning documents that we have on our official records, and so you can take a look at those, and you're welcome to send us anything else you'd like. Thanks again for your input.
Thank you, John.
Okay, so Taylor, we discussed at the break the options we kind of had from a legal standpoint and a timing standpoint. So we can basically, what we can do is have a work session with commission members, with you and the commission members, and have them kind of give them about a week or so to maybe collect their thoughts and collect their suggestions into so that we can kind of funnel them into a precise list for you to, again, work as efficiently as possible to getting an approved plan. And then we can do that with don't have to renotice with the 2-week window. We can do a 72-hour window. So I just wanted to kind of let y'all know that's what Brian and I discussed in the break for how things could happen. But Commissioner, you guys have discussions you'd like to have.
No, thank you, Dave. Commissioners, do y'all have any other discussion regarding this case?
No, sir.
And I have
This is Taylor Stone. I'll be glad to have that meeting. It's going to be real hard for me to get something done by January 4th, given the holidays.
Okay, would you prefer if we just reconvene at the next regular meeting to discuss it further again and kind of?
No, I think a work session is what is needed. But if you guys, I mean, guys, I have to engage architects and engineers and landscape designers and, you know, people who draw this stuff. And, you know, you were talking earlier about how much money it costs, and, you know, we don't want you to spend thousands of dollars. I've already spent thousands of dollars, and I'm about to go spend more thousands of dollars, and I'm fine to do it, but I cannot meet the January 4th deadline. If that is a hard, fast deadline, I don't think I can. I can try. But, you know, I also know that stuff has to be turned in way ahead of time.
Yeah, it's not a hard and fast deadline. It would be that if the commission felt they wanted to postpone the vote, it would be at the time that you were able to get the appropriate documents in front of them to have such a vote. I don't think there would be any intent to postpone the vote to January and then you don't have the appropriate documents, then they vote no. I don't think that's the intent. The intent is to give you whatever time you need to one, meet with the commission and then get valuable input from them so that can be turned around in whatever time manner you're comfortable with so that you can get a approvable document in front of them.
Okay, and what work papers or work product do you want me to bring to this work session? And will it be via Zoom? Will it be in person? Will it be?
Brian and I were discussing with that it could be similar to this fashion where we're on Zoom, and it could be, I think we were going to recommend to the commission members that if they did want to do a work session and all this, that they could find some pictures of other developments they liked or inspirational photos or something that you could, kind of work from. I don't know if you wanted to take some of the discussion from tonight and maybe find some of your. I always go back to pictures because they tell a story that's very very clear and concise to everyone here that's not an architect. So that would be my suggestion to the commission. I wouldn't necessarily ask that you bring anything. It would be more that you come with open ears and really engage in the input. And if they give input, tell them, if it's good input, say great, we'd love to do that. If it's input that you can't make work, just be ready to explain the parts of your business that make that not work, or whatever the case is. I don't know.
Understood. Understood. Okay.
With Taylor, if it works out that December 16th at 7 is a good time for the P&Z for the work session, is that a time that you and or your consultants would be available?
Yes.
And just, if the general public are listening, so a work session means, we don't have a vote. We're not voting on anything in a work session. The purpose is just to basically be able to have a discussion and talk openly about whatever, the details are of that project so we can find a pathway forward. Again, as just said, for the benefit of the general public who are listening.
I guess my question too, Brian, he was talking about the deadline. With the January 4th, will that have to change based on the fact that, had to get his project together?
Yeah, I think you would just, instead of saying postpone the vote, the vote until the regular meeting, it's just postpone the vote until applicant can bring back the changes, requested.
Okay.
Oh, we'll simplify. Postpone the vote.
Yeah, postpone the vote period.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Commissioners, someone can,
Well, I just want it clear to the general public, because they've raised issues of transparency, valid concern. I have it where I live in my city, you know, and so just want to clear in this motion that, again, like, you know, no vote will be taking place before there's a regular meeting. You know, this work session is just for discussion, working on issues.
And if the general public has any, inspirational photos they'd like to send to us that would meet their, requirement, for what they would like, certainly you're welcome to send that to staff. And that we can present them in the work session.
Yeah, if there's anything anybody, the general public, you probably got my email address if you got that postcard. So yeah, feel free to email me your comments, pictures, ideas. I mean, preferably, you know, what we want are solutions. So we also need to know what your feedback is, and some of y'all spoke up about things you don't want to see, so that's important. What you don't want to see or what you do want to see. We'll take all the feedback we can get.
I have a question I'd like to just throw out there, if I may. So
What's your name again,
this
sir?
is, yes, this is Maurice Webb, 201 Pinewood Avenue.
Okay.
So as was stated earlier, there are obviously, and again, I just want to throw the question out there. I'll like to make this make sense as much as possible without getting overly emotional about the situation, which many of us are. But the question is, what is the specific benefits of having an apartment complex right across the street from us? I mean, we've already got, like I said, 3 within a half mile of just my residence. And so I just don't see, outside of the competitive nature of the industry, I get that part of it, but you're dabbling with people's home values at this point. So if I can get some clarification as to what are the specific benefits of having it this close to us, for further clarification.
So this was approved almost 20 years ago, from a use standpoint, far before the time that y'all's homes were built. And obviously I can't speak or control, or I don't know what the builders told you or what the developer told you. From a standpoint of, honestly, I don't even know if the other apartments you're referring to were even built yet either. I think the Red Oak Town Village was only built like in 2012 or something. In any case, I mean, apartments in general inside of a community are warranted. It's a place for people to transition from either moving further from the city before they buy a home, or that are not ready to buy a home from a, maybe their jobs are more, they're younger, or their jobs are more, take them around the country. They're a vital part of any community. Apartments do help bring better retail to a city, as you densify some of those areas. So it's like you're just talking about in general terms, apartments are not a bad thing. It will undoubtedly help bring more retail, restaurant type developments to the city. As far as the specific spot for it, that was made at the time by the applicant who applied for it, and then the council who voted on it at the time, again, 20 years ago. So landscapes have changed, but it's now here, and they're now ready to develop, and it is, again, a kind of titled from a use and density standpoint.
Okay, so we're bringing in a greater population at the expense of property values. Is that what I'm understanding from this?
Again, the apartments were entitled or planned to be built prior to any of the homes in Hickory Creek being built, so, no one, I guess, is thinking that we're making a sacrifice on the home values. And I totally understand everyone's concerns. But again, this was something that was approved 2003, almost 20 years ago, prior to any of the homes being built. So I'd like to see some of the documents your builders are showing you, especially if they're showing a bunch of parkland, because that was, I don't know that was ever the case.
This is the only thing showing is park for here.
So John,
Right,
why
so-
wasn't that disclosed before we built our homes? Since you said it was already pre-designed or predestined in 2003. And that would have given us a choice, because right now it does not sound like we actually have any choices here.
You're partially correct. So the choice is about form at this point. The use and density are already set, and along with a couple of other things that I don't know if you heard us talking about, like the garage, parking, things like that, they're kind of set. So now we're mostly worried about the form, making sure we get the appropriate form for the site.
I mean, we can dress it up as nice as we like, that doesn't change the value aspect of it. No matter how nice it looks, there is still a financial hit that we would incur from this. And that's, obviously, where my biggest concern is.
I understand, and I would encourage you, all the residents, I heard somebody on here was a real estate agent, right? I would maybe encourage one of the agents, or maybe an appraiser or something that has access to those variable sales data and things like that, to kind of jump around a few places in the Metroplex and try to find maybe a similar one and see if it truly does affect the home values. I know that from a perception standpoint, that is certainly almost everyone's perception that a new apartment complex will lower a home value, but I would say, just maybe for your own clarification, whether it does or it doesn't, maybe some research into and put some true numbers to it, and see if we can separate ourselves from I think I don't know if it was you or somebody else said they were feeling very emotional about it, and see if we can step back from the emotions and put true numbers to it, and then make a decision based on the actual numbers.
Right. So my wife is actually the realtor. So she's actually in her office right now. She's going to be taking a look at that stuff right now, as you're actually saying that. So it's good that you're on board with that. Once we bring that information to you, and I do have the contact information, so I will be reaching out in regard to this. Regarding the zoning authority. I understand this was 20 years ago. What can be done that's in writing, that if it's been zoned for this, then it obviously can be rezoned, and obviously it was rezoned at one point. I understand that's a little bit of a frustration for the applicant, and I do not mean to step on his toes in that regard at all, but I mean, at the end of the day, we're investing time into this community, as a permanent resident, not temporary. Because like, you know, with temporary, you come, you go, you bring all kinds of baggage with you in some cases. And we shouldn't have to pay the penalty for that, whether it be financial or by any other means.
Yeah, sir, this is Brian, the planning and zoning manager. Again, I hear you, but also have to mention though that by Texas statute, I forget the chapter, if you want me to tell you off the top of my head, I won't remember, but the basic idea is once a developer or property owner has basically gotten so far as zoning and platting, and there has been a plat of this property as well, even though it's not fully entitled to the exact form of what he wants to do, it was entitled for the use and the density. So, unless, I mean, there's really, as I understand it, at least under Texas law, there is not an option there that would not be expensive, legal, messy, and as far as I know, that we wouldn't win. But again, I'm not the city attorney, I'm just a planning and zoning guy. But I've been doing it for about 15 years now. And like I said, I think it was in 2011, I believe, is when the law changed. So it's a fairly recent law. It was brought about because of Glen Heights next door, actually. So yeah, we cannot initiate changing the zoning down in density or to some other use other than apartment. That's just not an option. But again, we hear you. All we can do is try to make this an opportunity to make it the best it can be, given it's going to be apartments and at a certain density. I'm sorry, I just don't know what else to tell you and the general public. That's just, you know, the situation we're in.
So does the city cover for any recourse for something like this financially? If we lose property value on this and are able to prove it through appraisers, does the city take responsibility for that at all, or are we just stuck with it?
Well, I guess I'm going to say I don't know, not the city attorney, but I would just point out that as far as I know, this entitlement predates the construction of those homes. So again, I'm not an attorney, but I don't see how that would work. But of course, you can always consult with one, but I understand how y'all must feel, the emotion, the anxiety, the stress. You invested a lot of money into something. The only thing we know to do is just try to make the best of the situation.
So is there any other zoning that's similar to this, that's next to that? Because then, you know, even though this is not directly, you know, right behind my house, it's literally, you know, a 2-minute walk around the corner. So the adjacent property that's coming further north, would that, is that zoned for the same type of property?
The rest of the kind of the open area along Hickory Creek, is that what you're talking about?
Correct, yes.
So I don't know which area we're talking about.
Part of it, like so that
This
dividing
area?
line.
Yeah, I believe that was supposed to, it's not apartment. I can't remember if it's like single family, like high density, or even possibly, I don't remember. I just know that it's not apartment.
Okay. So that could potentially be other townhouses that just are for purchase and not for rent.
It could be. I mean, anyone can come in and ask to change the zoning, and that's technically the way our process works. That they are technically changing the zoning right now by adding a development plan to finalize the zoning. So they're kind of halfway through the process. It's just the weird way it was done. So the portion to the north would have to do something similar. If they follow, we'd have to look up the exact regulations that will put on that land. But they would certainly have to do a development plan, which again, you'd be notified of. But if they were to change the zoning, in use, in a standpoint of a use, then there would be more to say about it than this situation. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes perfect sense, and I appreciate that answer. Would we get notification if the zoning for those areas are changed for the purposes that are being used, for that property being used as? So that way we would have a seat at the table when it comes time for, trying to avoid situations like this again in the future.
Yes, you would.
Okay. Typically, how frequently does this happen, and or in terms of changing the zoning? And then if it doesn't happen all that often, are we going to be notified through mail, email? What are the preferred methods that you guys would reach out to us?
Yeah, so we're required by law to notify you by mail. We also post on our website the agenda and the days and times zoning changes happen. How often does zoning changes happen? We have monthly meetings and we almost always have a zoning change on, in some form or fashion throughout the city. So zoning changes are quite regular. You just don't get notified of every one because the law requires us to notify everyone within 200 feet of the property. So in this case, the boundary of the property was within 200 feet of your property, which is why you got noticed for this and not, some of the other ones we've done around town that are across town.
Understood. Okay, that's all the questions I had. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I just have one question for John. Brian, if I need clarity because I'm hearing John tell Maurice, Mr. Webb, that that can be rezoned, but did I not hear you say that the zoning, that's a legal mess to have something that's already zoned
There's a general principle that if you own property, say on a piece of land, such as say in this PD, that PD 27 is, so if you own property in it and have a proprietary interest or have that interest, you can ask for a zoning change to amend something. However, that just means you can ask. Then the issue is, do they have to listen? Do they have to agree with you? And there's wide discretion. But the issue I was raising on top of that was just that by Texas law, once a developer has basically given his fair notice, has gotten the zoning, has gotten the platting, although again, his zoning's not fully entitled, but it's good enough for the issue of apartments to be entitled, that we can't go back and essentially downzone him and lower his density or change the use from apartments to something else. Now, it's really the property owner, Mr. Leibowitz, who has really this right. And if Mr. Leibowitz wanted to do something different, it would be far easier for him to do it because it's his property. If he wanted to go a different direction, he could ask the city, and he would have to ask, and he'd have to ask the city, hey, I changed my mind. I want to do something different now. And then the city could consider that request, and then that legal mess I was referring to wouldn't be an issue because it's his property. He's the one asking. But I don't know if that clears that up for you. But
No, sir, you explained it, and I guess my thing is the property. I don't understand why the property owner. I understand that Mr. Stone is on here because he's the builder, but the property owner being on here because that's something that as a community we can come together and ask him and give him some feedback. Like you guys are going to work with the builder. I think having an opportunity to speak directly with the property owner on our concerns and stuff, maybe he would take that in consideration.
That's right.
Thank you, Brian.
Big country.
Yep, you may, you're welcome to reach out to him.
I'm sorry, John, what did you say? I apologize.
His name is Ben. It's Ben.
It's Ben. I see John, Benford, and B. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
you call it John. Yeah, we call you saying John. We kind of looking around and saying like, who is that guy?
No, it's fine, it's fine, I'm not mic'd up, I'm talking.
Okay.
Yeah, you're welcome to contact the property owner, and discuss it with them, that, you can certainly do that if you'd like.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying as a community, by myself, but as a community, he might actually hear us and listen to some of our concern, and he might decide to go a totally different way. I'm just saying opportunities, but I'm just thinking, guys, I'm just trying to find a way not to sell my home.
Yes, ma'am, I understand. It would just, y'all as a community would have to reach out to him, to have that discussion.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Do you have his contact information for future reference if we needed to do that? Can we go through your office in order to obtain it, or how would we reach out to him?
Yeah, I think it's on the application. If you would just so we follow the rules, for that information, if you would contact the city secretary's office and do an information request, and then that way we can get it to you. Just want to make sure, we follow the rules.
Understood. Thank you.
And just to help you out, so what you would want to ask the city secretary, I should have told you. So she's got a web page and you can email her. And so what you'd want to ask is you want the property owner's name and contact information that was provided on the application for, what is this? Case Z as in zebra 20021 for PD 27. So you want the contact information, or we'll keep it simple. You want a copy of the application page with his contact information.
Gotcha.
And then we can provide that to you.
Okay. And with regard to the property that has that's to the north, that has not been that's not going to be built on at this time, would that case number be different for that? Is it sectioned off at a certain point, or how would that work?
Yeah, I probably need to research that. Going off memory, and I just don't want to put something out there and be wrong. But I know it's not apartments. I remember that much for sure. But but there is an ordinance history, and so if you email me, I'd be happy to, because I think I'll have to research this anyways for our meeting. But I'd certainly be happy to share what I find with you or anyone else that wants to know about the remaining tract.
Understood. And again, it's not to be belligerent or anything like that. It's just, we want to try and, for those of us who are, obviously not wanting to sell, we want to try and future-proof that as much as possible to prevent more apartments from being thrown up right across the street from us, essentially.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay, commissioners, can we have a motion, please?
Motion to close the hearing?
No, motion for agenda item B.
Brian, I can't see my script.
Oh, hang on, guys.
Oh, the sharing stuff?
Yeah.
Okay. Hang on.
I'm sorry.
Sorry about that, Mr. Franklin.
Where is it going?
It's all good, sir.
Second.
Okay, everyone see it now?
What about that, Willie? Can you see it? I'm not.
You see it. Thank you, sir.
Okay, sorry about that.
All right. This is Willie Franklin speaking. I motion to postpone vote and hold a work session on December 16th at 7 p.m. to be noticed not less than 72 hours in advance to discuss the project, but to no vote would take place before the regular January 4th meeting regarding this case.
Motion made by Willie, President, second by Lance. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Agenda item D will be postponed according to the records. Abstained by Mr. All right, and the last item on the agenda is item E, and that is for a staff update, topic comprehensive plan update and a new parks and trails master.
I hope the people that were just talking are still on there. If you are, don't jump off yet. So the city initiated updating its comprehensive land use plan and its master parks and trails plan. So, you know, we've initiated that process, and it's important because these are the future-oriented plans. You know, the gentleman earlier was talking about future-proofing and stuff. So with a comprehensive land use plan, this is your opportunity to shape and impact the future development of your city. Now, granted, it doesn't, you know, it's not a zoning change, it's not regulatory, it's a vision plan for what you want to aspire to be in the future. But if you want to impact the future, you want to participate in the comp plan. We don't have a web page yet dedicated to the comp plan. We're still in the early stages, but hopefully soon it'll be easy for people to follow along and see what we're doing, and hopefully have an opportunity for some public input along the way. And we did finally get our steering committee appointed, and so we are tentatively, forgot to bring the date, we're tentatively anticipating a January meeting on the 14th, Thursday, for our steering committee to kick off this comp plan update, master parks plan update. So we're very excited about this progress. It's only taken several months. But at any rate, I encourage anyone listening to please follow along, participate. If you have questions, you can email me, call me. I'm happy to give you updates. With that, that's all I got, unless PNC has questions.
No. Council, do you have any questions? All right, can I have a motion to adjourn the regular meeting?
Just one second. Brian, I did get your, you gave me that director to contact regarding trying to incorporate Watkins Park with possibly the renovations that are going on in the baseball area. I never got a response from him, but I'd reach out to you just to ask to see about the possibility of incorporating Watkins Park with this. I know the city's putting a lot of investment into this, the baseball fields to improve their. Yeah, I never heard a response. I got your email with his address, and I emailed him, but I never got a response.
Okay, I will follow up with Kyle on that. Sorry about that.
No, it's not your fault. But I did reach out to him.
Okay.
All right, can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
A motion to adjourn.
We got a motion by Vance,
I second.
second by Mr. Franklin.